What up, guys, and welcome into a special edition of Maybe I'm the Crazy One podcast. As always, I'm your host, Alex Chandler. I'm here live in person today with my co-host, Aaron Stout, and the guy that we kind of teased you about a few times over the last few weeks. It's our buddy John.
Glad to finally be on. I know that we've done a few of these live impromptu for the people around us at sporting games, but nothing formal before, so glad to finally be on.
I'm excited to have you on. We're going to have a great show today, guys. It's going to be probably a little bit shorter, so a lot of you are going to love that. Make sure that you tune in, though. Rate, like, subscribe, and share. Remember that we do have a giveaway going on right now as well. So in case, wow, words are hard today. I'm so sorry.
I mean, after last night, that's fair.
That is
fair.
Last
night was a night.
Last night, we let the liquor talk. Let's just say that. Thanks, Morgan
Big
Wallen.
facts.
So, we'll get to that here in just a little bit as well. But what we do have to, like I said, we have a giveaway going on. Make sure that you like the show. Make sure that you share the show and that you are subscribed. Additionally, just so we can keep a better track of this as well, go ahead and put Go Birds in the comment section of either the Facebook post that this is on or on the YouTube post, and you will qualify. And so go ahead and do those things for us. We appreciate you tuning in and checking us out. We're going to go ahead and get the show started today with our first segment that we always start with. That's Quick Slants. For those who are new here, and you're new here, of course, Quick Slants are really just things that we talk about really quickly. Sometimes they go on for a little bit of time. We saved the A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra stuff for later. So... for anybody who doesn't know, John is a Giants fan. Wow, a Detroit Lions fan. Again, words are hard. I'm trying to get words out, and
you struggle bussing today.
It's struggle bussing. Somebody else that was struggle bussing, the Indiana Fever, buddy. Since you want to go ahead and just call me out, I'm going to go segue right into that. Your Fever went down 2-0 yesterday.
Why do you say my Fever? I never picked a team to be my team.
I mean,
I just watched the league, homie.
Yeah, homie, and for all I can remember, it's been Caitlin Clark this and Caitlin Clark that. Caitlin Clark the third. She's one of your girls.
One of three that you gave to me, yes.
You chose them.
No,
you chose Caitlin, you chose Sabrina.
Correct.
And you chose NECA.
NECA was the one that I think Caitlin just gave to me because I talked about Caitlin a lot.
Well,
because originally, I picked NECA, but you gave who? Oh yeah, you gave me Kelsey Plum.
I gave you Kelsey Plum, and you said I want NECA. I said you can have NECA. That's totally fine.
I needed a big.
You don't have.
I don't have a 3.
Yeah,
no.
You don't have a 3. This isn't the women's big 3. But anyway, how do you feel about Caitlin's first season?
I mean, considering how the team did last year, I think it's a success. Obviously, the last thing you want to do as a playoff team is to get bounced, but in 2 games. But everyone that played lost both of their games. So, I mean, it's something that I'm sure that it's an improvement and a step in the right direction. But obviously, it's going to be disappointing nonetheless. You want to go out there and win, as any athlete does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure she knows, as well as the team knows, that turnovers have to be cut down. You can't average 5.6 turnovers over the course of the season and expect to not get blown out from time to time because you got to take care of the ball.
Mm-hmm. So I know we did some conversations about this pre-show, but I actually think they had a great season.
Yeah,
I didn't. I know I gave you guys a red herring thinking I was going to talk all this trash on Caitlin Clark. And here's the thing, I don't like the turnovers, but it literally went the exact way that I thought it would. I told you before the season started, she's not going to get those turnovers down. It's been something we talked about. It's something she's had her whole career.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to be this super successful team, but she will help that team. And if Aaliyah Boston could get things together, they would be, a contender potentially. And
then Lexi Hull and Kelsey Mitchell being more so the fact, stepped up big, especially post All-Star break. And I know we've talked about that a lot, and that's kind of being a dead horse at one point, but it's true. Kelsey Mitchell just went to a completely different level, and then Lexi Hull put in quality minutes with I think she was literally the best 3-point/field goal percentage shooter post All-Star break. So that helped carry them. And then obviously like Leah Boston stepped up as well. We talked about that, but I think the other two were honestly like bigger factors in that. But I think it was just like them trying to find their identity, which I think they're still trying to do. But I think they were definitely like starting to get a handle on that, and it showed as the season progressed.
It definitely did, and at the end of the day, I hope that she continues to grow. I hope that she gets the turnovers down, but we've also seen players on both sides of men's and women's not be able to translate that game and learn that next step, and that's what holds them back. And so, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I'll be honest, I have not watched a ton of WNBA this season. I have watched more WNBA this year than I've watched in the rest of my life.
Most people.
Most people have, and I think
that's me included. So
yeah, it's like Caitlin Clark has
not-
obviously been huge for the growth of the league, and it's not been just beyond Caitlin Clark. It's like we're not just talking about her; we're talking about the league as a whole, and I think that's something that's been really awesome to see. I think that I do love to see the growth of women's sports as a whole, and I think that going forward, I think as long as she can get that down, I really I don't know where I'm going from here.
As long as you can get that down, it'll be better. I agree with you. I mean, there was just the end of the sentence there. You're good.
Yeah, there was just the end of the sentence.
Yeah, there you go. So, hey, let's get to something that you are more comfortable with, okay? As you guys can see, he's wearing a Michigan M.
Defending national champs.
Defending national champs. Whatever, man. That's only going to be holding water for 3 more months, right? Because you're not winning the Big Ten.
No, they're not winning the Big Ten.
No. Well, at least you're realistic about that. But they did beat USC this week.
They did.
They
did have a very strong performance against USC, obviously making the change over from Davis Warren over to Alex Orji. I think that was a very good change. It was a very necessary change for Michigan. Davis Warren, he just could not take care of the football. And if you, again, just like in basketball, you don't take care of the ball, you don't win games.
Ball security is job security.
Can Alex Orji throw the ball at a Division I power forward level? No, but he is a phenomenal athlete, and I think that they were able to build a game plan around that where it involved running the ball. I don't know the exact counts on run versus pass, but it was a very, very run-heavy game. It is exactly the kind of game that Sharon Moore wants to coach. Like looking back to last season when he was taking over for Jim Harbaugh, when they ran 32 consecutive plays against Penn State, and that was with a top 10 quarterback on the roster. Top 10 NFL draft pick quarterback.
Was he 10?
He was number 10.
Okay.
Yes, he was.
I thought he was 11, but okay. That's fine.
He's top 10 pick, J.J. McCarthy.
We can argue if that was a real good pick or not, but
Orji threw the ball 12 times.
Orji threw the ball 12 times, and some would say that was maybe 4 too many. But
are you one of those people?
I think that Michigan threw the ball about as much as they needed to.
Okay.
I think that it's clear that their success is going to come through the running game. Their offensive line is clearly not the level that it has been in the past few years.
Sure.
I think you can only lose so many players to the NFL. I think they've had, over the past 3 years, 9 or 10 players drafted from that offensive line, and you can only replenish so many times, especially when you're not recruiting at a Georgia or an Alabama.
I'm about to say Georgia and Alabama seem to do it every year.
When you are bringing in a dozen 5-stars a year,
right,
you can only replenish so many times. But I think that that's been very key to their success. Khalil Mullings has looked absolutely phenomenal at running back. I think he's been a revelation. He's somebody who I was in the past very low on. I thought that he was a converted linebacker who really didn't know how to play the position. He's learned to play the position very well. But I think that they looked questionable at times, and I think that this is a case of two teams that are clearly taking a step back this year. USC obviously losing Caleb offensively. Their quarterback, I'm struggling to remember his name.
Is it Miller Moss? I think we talked about this.
Miller Moss.
Is it Miller Moss?
Yes,
Miller Moss.
Okay.
Yes, he looked much better in the second half. The first half, he got off to a very rough start. I think that the USC, this was their introduction to the Big Ten. I think that's the best way of putting it is they held the opposing team to 32 yards passing, and they lost. I don't know how many times that's ever happened in Pac-12 history. My guess is pretty close to 0.
I don't know if any team has been held to 32 yards passing in a quarter in Pac-12 history.
They may have been, but they certainly weren't winning that game.
No. So what's both of these teams' ceilings, would you say?
I'd say that Michigan realistically is going to be, and I think actually both these teams, I think they're about 8-9 win teams. I think that maybe Michigan could push for 10. I'm not quite sure how generous USC schedule is. I believe that they've got a little bit tougher of a schedule. I think they've got Ohio State still. I think they've got Oregon still. I think Michigan's also got both of those teams. And I think that both teams are going to lose to both of those, realistically, as much as it pains me to say.
Sure.
But I think that their ceiling is going to be maybe pushing 10. But I think that you get 9 wins, that's going to be a very solid season for either of these programs as they're kind of looking to bounce back and rebuild from what they were.
Okay. How long do you think it takes you to rebuild?
Depends on how serious David Portnoy is about paying a quarterback $3 million a year.
Well, David, that's your call to go ahead and pay all the quarterbacks to go to Michigan at this point. And to be fair, though, if they're going there for the money, I probably don't want them. I'm just saying that. I know you guys have high, rigorous academic standards that they still have to meet, and the criteria there, they still have to be smart players, clearly. But I don't know if you necessarily want a guy going there just because of the $3 million.
I wouldn't say that you want anybody who's going there just because, I don't want to be here, but I'm here for $3 million. But I think that when you're trying to compete against a team like Ohio State, who spent $25 million putting together the roster this season, you need to be able to splash the cash. Like you see what's happening with Texas specifically. Texas, as soon as NIL came around, Texas is back. Texas looked absolutely phenomenal so far this season, and I think a lot of that is to do with they've got a very, very strong NIL collective.
They do.
And I mean, Texas has both Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. You're not doing that without NIL.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't think they should have Quinn Ewers. I think he should have gone to the league by now. But, that's a different story for a different day. He's the best quarterback in the country.
Didn't we talk about that last episode that we were, in most case scenarios that we see so many, often mistakes about people leaving or staying when they shouldn't have, but we said that he was not the case, that his stock actually went up because he stayed.
It has, because so he's going to get drafted higher than he would have last year, but he was still good enough to compete in the league, is what I was saying there.
Okay.
But and that's what I'm saying now. It's I don't necessarily think they both should be there. I think both of them deserve to be starting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that Arch has gotten the opportunity because Quinn has been hurt, that's great for them. And you're able to definitely see is Arch the guy? Is Arch not the guy? But sorry for that. But that's kind of where my thoughts are. So
what I see with that and Quinn Ewers' decision to return, I think that it does remind me of Texas. Really does remind me of last year's Michigan team, where it was they felt that team was right on the doorstep. Where again they lost in a close game in the college football playoff. And they thought, hey, we can bring this together, bring this back, and then we can make a push and actually win a championship. And I think that Texas is in a really good position to do that. And I think that must have played heavily into that decision. And I think that for that, if he's trying to go there and he's trying to be a Texas legend, that's the right decision.
No, it's the right decision. And it's, like I said, it's going to help his draft stock. Again, they both deserve to be starters at this point, clearly somewhere. So, but yeah, you're right. Texas is back. Michigan is not.
Yeah.
You know what else is back? Champions League.
Champions League
is back.
So that's more your guys' style. So I'm going to sit back and let you guys communicate about that. And go Barcelona.
Yeah. I guess I'll just kick off. What are your opinions so much on the format this year? I think that's the thing I'm most excited about with the Champions League is where they're moving away from the more rigorous group stage format to kind of a more free-flowing where you get 2 games against pot 1 teams, 2 against pot 2, 2 against 3, 2 against 4. It's I think that's a much more exciting format. It produces a lot more variable results. There's going to be a lot fewer situations, I think, where teams are going to be resting players or playing suboptimal lineups. But I think the downside to that is with this
schedule congestion.
Exactly. Yeah. Something's got to give. And unfortunately, so far, the thing that's given is Rodgers' knee.
When they first decided the format, I was like, I didn't quite understand it at first until I was watching the Champions League draw. And obviously they were talking about it. And I was like, okay, this actually seems good for the growth of the Champions League. They haven't changed it in
100 years?
No, it has not been that long. But
the format's been around for a hot minute.
You guys keep talking. I'll look that one up.
But when I saw it, I was like, I thought that it was a good step to, like you said, for more excitement, because a lot of the time we're your diehard soccer and or football fans will still, watch the traditional like group stage games as they were. But now that you have games going against, like you have two games against, top teams, like in what would be the group stage, if you will, or the opening stages of the format now, to where, where you may not normally get that till, the knockout rounds, or even later in the knockout rounds, you're seeing it on a much higher scale, because like you said, there's two, as a pot one team, you're playing two other pot one teams.
Yeah.
And so most of the time you're only playing one, but now you're spanning that across, what is it, 6 groups, or like 6 groupings, if you will.
I think there's 8 teams per pot, something like that.
Yeah. And but obviously when we talk about like just especially soccer in general, because we've even talked about it on the show, like in MLS, where MLS has even stated about like schedule congestion, because we added Leagues Cup, and we also have the U.S. Open Cup, which we went to last night, and then on top of that, you have teams that qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League Cup on top of that, and it's just like we're adding games, and there's like less time for break, and then so I think if anything, you got to be able to like maybe a remedy is to be able to have more people on the bench. Like obviously, subbing is one thing, but like being able to have more people on the bench rather than just your typical, what's the number that you can have?
25 is the total, usually the roster, and then it's 18 in the game day.
Right.
Yeah, it's 18, I think.
So like I don't know if like expanding the bench in terms of like who you can sub would help remedy that in terms of like dealing with schedule congestion, but I think that would help, like be a step in the right direction to try to help with that, because like what Sporting played 3 games in 5 or 7 days, and that does happen in the Premier League too. Like yesterday, Carabao Cup was going on for the English teams, which is like that's like our U.S. Open Cup here,
Right.
And then they still have the Premier League games this weekend. They just played, if your team made Champions League, which John and I did. John is a Man City fan. I'm a Liverpool fan. They just played earlier in the week for Champions League, so now they're playing 3 games within a week span. And
Barcelona also made the Champions League, right? Right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, that's right. All 3 of our teams made it.
They did.
Thank you.
But so
Gosh.
and like the Premier League season just started, where like the MLS is nearing the end. Premier League, the English League just started, and as far as that, like the German leagues and French League, all that has been, we're 5 weeks in now, 6 or about to start week 6.
A month in,
and they've already had a week in which some teams have played 3 games already.
Well, Man City had a game on Sunday and on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, they played Arsenal on Sunday, and then they played again in the Carabao Cup on Tuesday. And then, in addition to the Carabao Cup, there's still also the FA Cup that's going to be going on.
And that's
you got
true
the
too.
Champions League, and then you're seeing.
I guess would FA Cup be a better representation of like U.S. Open Cup? You think rather than Carabao?
I think that both of them represent what the U.S. Open Cup represents.
I guess, yeah.
It's just there's a lot more depth in England than there's in the United States.
This is true. Yeah.
Teams.
Yeah, there's like 9 teams in one city in England.
There's a lot more than 9 teams in one city.
Well, I'm saying like down here there's like 9 teams, and then up here there's like 8 teams.
But yeah, there's so many more teams. Just like you don't hear about the other teams that get put in these cups. Like there's like 5th, 6th division like teams that make this cup, and then sometimes you'll get a Cinderella that'll make a run.
Yeah, and those are, and I really would hate to see that go away. I think that that's something that's really great. I remember, like the example that always sticks out to me is Tottenham a few years back when they were playing a road game at, I believe, a 7th division side, where they're just playing. It's a pitch that was just square in the middle of a neighborhood. They had a list of all of the phone numbers of the people who live across the street in case the ball got kicked across there, so they can go pick it up later. It's wild. You do not see that.
You don't, and it's
and,
wild.
And you get to see them playing one of the top teams in the world. Like it's just such a crazy juxtaposition, and I think that's really awesome. And I think that's something that they do really well. And I'm worried that that's what will go, because the alternative is, because like we were talking about, people want to see those really exciting matchups, and you're just going to keep adding more and more of these fixtures where it's like, all right, these top teams are going to be playing against each other, but also we want to see the top teams playing against the lowest division sides, and also the top teams are going to be playing in have to focus on the league. And while you can do so much with the bench, like you get an example like Rodri, for example. Man City has no Rodri replacement. No. He is one of one. So there's like you could have a bench slot, like more bench slots, but if Man City is going up against Inter, Rodri's starting every time. And Man City's going up against Arsenal, Rodri's starting every time. So it's you get something will have to give at some point.
But he didn't say Man City going against Liverpool though.
Man City's going against Liverpool. Rodri probably starts, but we sub him off in the 65th minute once the game's sealed.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah,
but like my thing is like in terms of like expanding the subs, maybe you can also again expand the rosters a bit so you can go out and get those players. Like obviously, like I know John's team struggles with financial fair play and all of that, but
shots back.
And there, what is it, 117 counts,
115 charges. I will not get into I will get into my take on financial fair play. I think it is purely designed so that the rich clubs stay rich and the poor clubs stay poor. That is my take on financial fair play. I think that it is absolute tomfoolery. I think the origins of it was so that clubs do not financially bankrupt themselves. Aaron, do you think that Man City is going to financially bankrupt itself by signing Haaland?
I don't know.
I mean, all that oil money they have, it's close, man. I don't know. It's like that's $1 trillion player right there.
Wasn't it like Atletico Madrid or somebody though that was like hundreds of millions of dollars in debt?
That was Barcelona.
That's your club. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there is teams that are spending irresponsibly because they do not have the funds to back up that spending. But as long as a team has the funds to back up the spending, if you're not going to have something like a salary cap, and I don't mean like the La Liga salary cap where Real Madrid's salary cap is 700 million euros, and you've got other teams in the league that have a 30 million euro salary cap.
Right.
I mean a real legitimate United States style salary cap. I think that it's what are you actually doing with financial fair play? It's you're protecting the rich clubs so that they maintain a competitive advantage over the rest of the field.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's fair. Leagues Cup, by the way, not like Leagues Cup. Wow, Champions League. There we go. Last time the format was changed was 2003, 2004.
Let's say I knew it wasn't like 100 years as you were alluding to, but
no,
I just couldn't remember. I thought it was early 2000s, but I couldn't pick a year on it.
Yeah, Champions Cup actually started as the European Cup in the 50s, so it hasn't even been around really for as Champions League for over 100 years.
But yeah, so far the games for Champions League have been exciting. I think there's been a lot of good ball, which you can expect from Champions League. Obviously, there were some not great games because Bayern won their first game was it 9-2 or 9-1.
Yeah, I was actually going. I believe 9-2. I was going to touch on that. It's like Bayern under Vincent Kompany looking absolutely phenomenal so far. I've loved to watch them play. The style that they're playing now under Kompany, playing that Pep Guardiola system, they look unstoppable. They look phenomenal. I'm so excited. It's like I'm so excited to watch them play that style after playing Tuchel ball and a not so pretty game to play.
No,
they're playing very open. They're playing very fast. They're attacking. It's great to watch, and it's hard not to feel very, very optimistic about Bayern this year.
Where's Pep from?
Where's Pep?
Yeah,
he's from Catalonia.
Okay, what team is he the manager of right now?
Manchester City.
Okay, what team is your team?
Manchester City.
Okay, I rest my case.
Did I pick Manchester City because I really enjoyed the style of play which Pep Guardiola coaches? Absolutely.
Did you?
I did.
Okay.
But one thing I made jokes with John about is they're looking real great until you get closer and closer to reaching that cup final, and then you have the powers of trophyless Harry Kane is what I call it.
Heck yeah,
man! Bayern is my favorite team all the way up to the semis, and then you have Harry Kane.
And so another guy that's similar to Harry Kane, trophyless, well, except he has a trophy in his case, I guess, is Derrick Rose. And so that's where we're going to end our quick slants. We're going to jump back across the pond. That was a great brief, break for myself, really honestly. That was nice. But Derrick Rose retired this week.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that,
retired yesterday.
It's still this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anyway, Derrick Rose. I want to know, guys, What is your favorite memory or story from Derrick Rose's career? Because while it wasn't the career that clearly was designed for him when he was drafted by the Bulls in I think 2011, maybe 2010, whenever there's him and Michael Beasley were 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
And Beasley's clearly been out of the league for a while now, growing dreads in the Philippines, and Derek was with I think the Knicks last year, maybe the Grizzlies.
Grizzlies.
Because remember we talked about him trying to help Ja reform.
Yeah.
And so, what do you have as your favorite moment or memory of his whole career? It could be with in the NBA. It can be at Kentucky. If you have a high school story you want to tell about Derrick Rose, that's totally fine too. I guess I just don't know if you would.
My favorite memory is not NBA related.
Yeah.
It is. Well, a benefit for myself, but not for him. But is when they played KU in the 2008 finals when he was in Memphis.
Yeah.
And Chalmers hit that shot, and then they went on to win after he clanked, I think, both of his free throws.
Yeah, I mean, CDR was more of the problem there. Chris Douglas Roberts. He missed 5 of 8.
But I will say, in terms of, stylistic play that I like, he reminded me a lot, prior to his injury, of a Dwayne Wade. Obviously he's a bit... He's definitely quicker than Wade was, even I would say in his prime. More definitely but they both have that that slasher mentality and just the high flying exciting stuff. And it was always great to watch him play. Even as a Heat fan, watching him play with the Bulls, and obviously everything that gets talked about it was his MVP season, and that was just such a great season to watch until his injury happened, because we're he's going to be the next big thing, because people couldn't stop him until Tibbs stopped him.
Tibbs stops everybody. What about you?
So mine is a much more personal memory. It is also of him when he was playing in college. This was also in that 2008 NCAA tournament where they were playing the opening weekend in Kansas City. Michigan was also playing the opening weekend in Kansas City. I was very excited to go. My dad, he went and he got 3 courtside seats for myself, right behind the basket for myself, my grandpa, and him. It was a really awesome experience. And then we show up and the tickets were for the wrong session.
Oh no!
So we had tickets to watch Memphis play whoever they were. My brain is saying Cal State Northridge.
Okay.
And then it was Maryland versus somebody in the other game.
Oh, the good old Terrapins.
It was just getting to watch him play in person, also getting to experience that with my dad and my grandpa. That was a very, very special memory for me. It's something that I really enjoyed. We did also wind up getting tickets to the Michigan session that were a little bit cheaper. Okay. Yeah, we were up in the nosebleeds for the rest of it, but yeah, no, that was a very, very
an inadvertent good memory to happen that you didn't expect to.
Yeah, no, that was a really awesome experience, and we were our tickets. The tickets didn't actually exist. We found out when we got there. So the tickets were for row 3, right behind the bands. So the bands take up the first 2 rows. Row 3 is actually where the dividers are.
Oh,
so I believe what happened is the person was informed, "Hey, your tickets doesn't happen," and so they just decided, "All right, I'm just going to sell these."
Oh,
and we just bought some tickets for a really good price.
Nice.
It's man, these are great tickets for right behind the basket. And so we just sat at the 4th row until they showed up halfway through the second game. I don't know why.
Through the Maryland game?
Yeah, just halfway through the second game, and then we just moved somewhere in the stadium. It was a really cool experience.
Nice. That's cool. It reminds me, it's not a Derrick Rose experience, but when Eric and I went to the Hall of Fame Classic last year to see K-State play a terrible game against USC, I didn't expect us to be able to watch the LSU game. In the first half of that. I didn't realize I was a part of that, the women's LSU team. So that was Angel Reese, Floje Johnson, Haley Van Lith, my girl, my girl Haley Van Lith.
Not Paige Beckers.
Not Paige Beckers. And then that whole Colorado team had just decimated them. And, I ended up making me believe that they could be national champions. But, fuck me. That's one. That's one. And so, but my favorite Derrick Rose memory is actually just more of a recent one for him. It's when he went to New York, granted with Tibbs again, but it was how the city embraced him and how much he was able to look like a serviceable guard again after so many years of being in mediocrity.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot on the show about just seeing players return to greatness, having greatness before and after. And that's basically what he did. He personified that perseverance, right? And that's kind of what I'm going to remember his whole career as is, he was a high flyer. He was an MVP. He was a first team All Pro, granted one time. And,
one time for the one time.
But, sometimes it only takes one time. And while he's not a Hall of Fame player, he's a basketball overall, his totality. I would say it's a Hall of Fame-esque career because remember that they take in the whole account for the college basketball, not college basketball, the basketball Hall of Fame
experience.
Yes, and while he doesn't have titles, and that's definitely one thing that weighs heavy on that, he has the talent to be a Hall of Fame level player. So,
yeah.
All right, so I think that's our quick slants. Went a little bit long. We got real excited about soccer in Michigan for a minute. So.
Yeah.
But no, I want you to have your time. I want you to have your fun, man. It happens all the time. Again, last week we spent 16 minutes talking about John Elway. Yeah, and I hate John Elway. You don't hate John Elway, but that is what it is.
Right, but I don't have the bias that Chris has in terms of
shout out Chris. Let's see if he catches this one.
Man struggled the multiple times that he got called out to find it
in one episode, not even every episode, just one.
Yeah, like when we were walking through, we were talking about it, the two of you were mainly talking about it, about the whole John Elway conversation that we had in the previous episode, and about whether or not John Elway being carried and all that. And I was like, hey, you won't hear me argue. I'm like, I'm decently unbiased a lot of the time. I'm not gonna disagree. I
don't know if you heard me tell that lady last night too after that call. On the offsides, I was like, I have to be unbiased. I have a podcast.
Yeah, but I'm just just because he was a player who played for a team that I support doesn't mean that I can't be objective at times, and that is a time that I'm not gonna. That's not a hill I'm gonna die on for that because it's from a logical standpoint, it's obviously
it's clear.
It is right. Clear.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you're wrong, Chris. Shout at you again. But hey, you ready to be objective a little bit more?
I am ready to be objective.
You know what time that is. It's out of bounds time, buddy. So you don't have anything to be out of bounds on unless you feel like you have something to be out of bounds on. But
I really cannot recall an instance in which I was wrong.
That's fair. We're going to have some video proof here in a minute that, we might be able to use in the future.
Forever immortalized.
Then we can have some proof that you're wrong, and we'll probably send that to your wife who,
yeah, of course. And then she will roast me endlessly, but that's fine. Or she just won't watch it.
It might be a little both.
Yeah, I think she will skip to exactly that point and then just
don't worry,
that
time.
We'll timestamp.
We'll timestamp.
No, I'll even go one better. I'll just clip it in there. We'll just send it to her.
Oh, then she will play that on repeat.
Yeah, it'll just be on in the background on your.
She'll put it on that new TV that you just put up in your house.
Oh man, it is nice.
Put it on the video, right? But all right, so I'll let you go first. Then, what are you out of bounds on this week, Eric or Aaron? Wow,
oh, wow, man! I will give you props. You have not done that in a long time, which is impressive.
I miss him.
I do miss Eric too.
The show misses him.
The show does miss him.
I don't know. John misses him.
15-win Bengals team.
If you guys remember, Eric said that the Bengals were winning 15 games, and the best they could finish right now if they win every game out is 14-3. So he's already wrong. He's the first person wrong on anything. That's what he's out of bounds on already.
But speaking of winning games, teams that, at least one of them, I have a two-parter for this one because I was kind of wrong on both in terms of how I had divisions and teams shaking out. The first one, you weren't right on this either, is the Steelers.
Yeah. I mean, I had them going 8-1. I didn't have them having a losing record.
Correct. So I had them as a losing record, and I have much respect for Mike Tomlin, and apparently that respect was not even enough because, obviously, Justin Fields has been playing better. So it seems than what he did in Chicago. So, and especially with the problems that Caleb Williams is having at Chicago, it looks more like what we talked about in the pre-show about it being a Chicago problem, not a Justin Fields problem. And granted, it hasn't been glorious by any means, but winning is winning. And, obviously maybe I didn't give as much credit to Pittsburgh's defense as I would in past years. Cause I thought maybe with the whole, Justin Fields and Russell situation originally, we thought that Russell was going to start, in which he still hasn't, Mike Tomlin hasn't named Justin Fields is starter. Yeah, he doesn't need to, but like at this point, like we've said this multiple times. You don't go from young to old. So unless he just absolutely just kills their season in some way, like I don't foresee Russell Wilson stepping in for Justin Fields. But yeah, my first thing that I was about out of bounds on was predicting how well that the Steelers would be.
And I'll piggyback that as well. Is that we both owe Eric an apology because he did have them winning 10 games, and I think in the playoffs.
That's true.
So Eric, we're sorry.
Because I had them. I'm pretty sure I had them winning 6 games, and they're already halfway there. And for them to unless they just have some sort of huge meltdown with Mike Tomlin, which we've never seen in his entire coaching career, they're definitely going to get those 6 wins. Barring any unforeseen circumstances. So, my bad, Steelers Nation. Maybe it was part of my disdain for Russell Wilson, but yeah, shout out Mike Tomlin for getting his players to play every week. I did not apparently give, like I said, I did not give enough credit to Mike Tomlin as much as respect as I do have for him. The second thing I was out of bounds on, which you can call me out on, is the Buffalo Bills, where. I didn't have them. I had them just missing out on the playoffs, but I didn't necessarily foresee. I thought they were going to be taking more steps back than what they have. Obviously, I wouldn't call it being 3-0 taking steps back, but I didn't foresee them playing as well as they have. Josh Allen is playing extremely well.
Doesn't have a interception yet.
Yeah,
he's I think he's 9-0 right now.
Yeah,
9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He does have a fumble,
right?
But
he's itching for one.
Well, that's the thing. So he came out and he said that, and I'm sorry to cut you off and railroad you here, but he came out and said that he's basically not forcing, he's just going where the ball goes, where somebody's open. And that makes a lot of sense because when you look at it, Stephon Diggs constantly was upset on the sideline because he wasn't getting targeted, and so they felt like they had to go to him. And I think Ken Dorsey, that was a lot of the problem with Ken Dorsey, and Joe Brady's like, yo, we're not doing that. I won a national championship, for Christ's sake, at Oregon, not Oregon, LSU. With Coach O. Ogeron. That's where the words Oregon came to my head. Again, words are hard today. It's like a Monday, but it's not. And so continue. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so the Buffalo Bills, I've initially been wrong at that. Again, there's still a lot of season to play. We're only 3 weeks in, about to start week 4 today. But my initial take on that is obviously I was wrong about them. They are 3-0. I think I had them winning, 9 games.
You had them below the Jets and the Dolphins in the division. I don't remember the exact games.
Right, but I had that division fairly close because I had the Dolphins as my 5 seed.
Did you have the Jets winning the division?
Sorry, 4. I had them as the 4 seed. My bad. They were the lowest of my 1-seeded teams. So, but yeah, that is my other out of bounds take was, I guess my doubt in Josh Allen and just with things that were happening in the offseason. Granted, obviously part of that was with Stephon Diggs, who then was traded and they got rid of that. But I thought that losing him, they would be taking a step back offensively. And obviously that has not been the case. So
no, has it? Did you have something to say about that?
Not necessarily about the Bills so much. I do want to just touch back on the Steelers. I think that a lot of the conversation around Mike Tomlin has been for a long time is he the best bad coach or is he the worst good coach? And I think we might just have to accept Mike Tomlin's just a good coach.
He is just a good coach.
He's just a great coach. I actually, so ironically, I didn't even know we were going to talk about this. This morning on my Reels came up a whole conversation on another show. I don't remember what it was, so I'm sorry, about Mike Tomlin specifically. And he's like, he's the most overrated coach. And this guy started going crazy on him. And he was like, what the hell are you talking about? He's the only coach to not have a losing season in his career. And he started coaching when I was 3, and I'm about to be 22. Is what the guy said. And the other guy's response was, he's a losing record in the playoffs. And I'm like, most teams outside of Andy Reid have a losing record in the playoffs.
Yeah, winning records in the playoffs simply just are not a realistic thing. That's an expectation that we've seen from
any franchise in any sport.
Yeah, basically. We've seen that from Belichick, and then now from Andy Reid and Mahomes, but realistically, that just does not happen in the NFL.
No, and I think the Steelers are also the only team to reach the Super Bowl in every decade. because they did it in the 70s. They won a bunch in the 70s. They won one in the 80s. They got to one in the 90s. They won one in the 2000s, the aughts.
Yes.
And then 2011 or 10 or whatever it was the 10s. And now we're in the 20s. It might be. It just might be.
Justin
I mean,
Fields.
It might be, man.
Hey,
Trent
at some
Dilfer
point,
made one.
Hey, we still have 5 more years for that to happen too. So who's to say what can or can't happen between then to make that decade thing keep going.
What if Russell Wilson gets another ring, but this time as a bench player?
Okay.
Don't give Eric more ammunition.
That might be the worst thing we could do. So,
all right. Moving on from that.
I got to give my out of bounds take. This is kind of a cop out because I didn't have a lot of things I was wrong about last week. One of the main things I said on the show was that John Elway was carried, and has been validated by both of you, including a Broncos fan. The other thing I said was that Steve Young and John Elway are basically the same thing, and we validated that as well this week. So I feel good there. Another thing I said is that the Eagles offense only scores about 15 points a game without A.J. Brown in the lineup, and they scored exactly 15 points this week. But they did win the game, and I said if A.J. didn't play, they might lose. So, but the defense played excellent. We'll get to that later. But what I was out of bounds on was my supreme and utter confidence that Sporting was going to come to L.A. and win Open Cup. And not only did they not do that, it almost felt like they stopped trying once the game went the extra time.
I would say for 70 minutes, it looked like it could go either way, like personally. And then toward the end of the second half, like before extra time started, like I want to say it was around the 83rd minute, we were both trading runs basically. And I was just like, someone's going to put one away. And then obviously like when the final time was called before extra time started, like we saw Peter talking to him, we're like, all right, maybe this is like, where we rally here. And then we just fell flat right on our face.
And I didn't think we would say this before the game started, but the game really flipped when Daniel Shalhoub came out of the game versus coming into a game.
Which has not happened all year long.
Right.
I think that this was really the case. And first of all, shout out to LAFC for honestly a phenomenal performance, especially in the extra time. I think in the regulation period, this was a very hotly contested game. I think that it was very cagey that first half where we were both just kind of feeling each other out, trying not to make any huge mistakes. But I think that once they scored and then Sporting immediately responded, it was just 20 minutes of just incredible soccer. It was just so much fun to watch.
No, go ahead. Sorry, you're still going. My fault.
Yeah. But I think that really what it came down to in that last 30 minutes is just the depth of the teams. It's like Sporting is obviously not a very deep team. You look at our bench a lot of times and you think, I really don't know what we're going to do. And like sometimes you look at making a starting 11 and you're like, I don't know who we're going to start. And it's not because we have too many good options.
We don't have enough good options.
We don't have enough good options. Whereas LAFC, they have the luxury of taking a player like Olivier Giroud, somebody who, if somebody that caliber, that kind of prestige came to Kansas City, they would be expected to be the savior of Kansas City. Where they could bring him on, they can have him play 60 minutes, that's what he's good for. He can play 60 minutes. He can be very strong. He can be in the box. He can be a presence. He scored.
He did the job what they brought him in to do.
Did exactly what they brought him to do. And then they were able to sub him off, and they didn't skip a beat.
No, the guy that they brought in, Omar Campos, is the one that scored the goal, the
game-winning goal.
Yeah, it's like, and it really just came down to that depth, and I think that's.
Also, I will say shout out Kai Kamara because as a Sporting fan, as much as it hurt to see you score that goal, I do love to see you do well. You've always been like one of my favorite players watching with Sporting when we like rebranded and all of that. Like he was like, I was really upset and was like when we sold him. Like I get it, it's part of the business, but like I feel like just sometimes there's players that you just don't sell, and I felt like I know a lot of people at the time, even despite the money that we got for him, like with Dom Dwyer, like I understood that. And like, I was slightly upset, but I'm like, I get it. I don't think he's going to replicate what he had already been doing. But, we sold Kai. Kai went and played in Europe for a while, came back and has still been scoring goals galore.
He's
and I'm
second now all time, right? To
I think so.
I think he's up there. And yeah, it's like
he's either second or third. I don't know if he ended up passing or not, but he's at least top 3, if not 2. I just know he's not 1 yet. But and
with prime years out of MLS.
Right.
Yes.
Like that's the important part there. He spent like 2 or 3 years at Middlesbrough, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's also touching base on, again, the depth of LAFC. That's another player that they were able to bring on in stoppage time. And I don't know
Instant
if there's
impact.
a player on Sporting's roster that's going to be able to make that header that Kai made there. Like, that was a fantastic athletic play. He got
Definitely
way
not
up
Willie.
there.
Definitely not Willie.
Definitely not
He
Willie.
could get there.
It's like,
He would just send it
the
to
only
the
person scoring
concourse.
headers on our team is Rosero, who's
Rosero,
sitting on
and
the bench.
yeah, it's like Rosero is not getting that high up.
And yeah, and right now he honestly kind of deserves to be there. He's not been playing well outside of the offensive half of the field. When he's a defender, that's probably the worst thing that you could be good at that point.
Speaking of defending, though, who played a hell of a good game, and I know the two of us shit on him all the time, is Kyrie.
Boom!
He shut down shut down Denise Bouanga all game long.
Yeah.
Like Bouanga, I think what was it for the was it the header to Kai that he played, right? He's the one that delivered that, right?
He delivered the cross. No, that was Bogus. He delivered no, he got Volo tried to take him down in the before the box on the second goal, and then he stayed up, got the ball outside, which then got to Campos, who pulled it out the edge.
That's
and stepped over Basson.
Minus that kind of string of play, like Bouanga did have good runs, but Kyrie basically put the clamps on him all game long, and he's been one of the best players in MLS for the past couple seasons now. And so for me shitting on Kyrie as much as I have, I've given Kyrie his due too. He's had good games, especially this season. I think what was it when we were doing Leagues Cup, who did we play? Who was it that we played after Chicago?
The Mexican team?
Yeah.
Was it Toluca?
Yeah, it was Toluca. They kept trying to go over the top of him for whatever reason.
I said no.
And I'm okay, I don't know why you would go over the top of someone who is literally 6 inches shorter than the guy that's marking him. But that was a game that I was just wow, he played extremely well. And this is a good Toluca side.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's games that he's definitely been on. He was the reason why I think Kai got that header was because he kind of sagged off him a bit too much. But even that aside,
it was 120 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. It's 120 minutes. I'm not holding that against him. No. I'm just saying, other aside from that moment, he had a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
So
I think
shout out Kyrie for that.
I think that he still can be a bit lacking at times when he's in possession, but I think defensively he was phenomenal in that game. And I think that's something. And I think the other thing that we really do have to shout out Sporting for is the resiliency right after LAFC scored.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like a very deflating goal, especially a goal where you look back and there's a lot of controversy about whether or not the first pass was offside, or if there was even a foul leading up to that forced the turnover.
There was no
or the second ball being offside.
Yeah, and it's I'm not so sure about the second. What I've seen is that the first was reviewed to be offside by just over a foot, which is
pretty substantial.
It's pretty substantial, but that can be a very, very deflating goal, especially in a game where you're going very back and forth. But Sporting was definitely not on the front foot when they were going back and forth. They were definitely trying to hold, and that felt very deflating. And I think I even said that where it's that's not a dagger, but it sure feels like one.
Yep.
But instead, Sporting immediately they pounced back, and they were very incisive with their attack. They had a couple great opportunities right away, and then I think it took all of 5 minutes for them to equalize.
Yeah, I think we determined that last night. Yeah.
But my one thing is though, seeing what we saw after the game was done with that particular goal, how is it that goal? What is it that the people at VAR / the refs think that they saw that didn't warrant even it being looked at?
So they looked at it because I went to the bathroom when they were checking, and so they did do a check. I watched him do the check.
He was in his earpiece, but what is it that the booth saw that thinks that the ref didn't need to go look at it? That's what I want to know.
So I'm
guessing. The ref
personally. I'm guessing here they didn't look at the foul. They didn't go that far back to see that because of the other 2 potential offsides. And then
even foul side. I'm just talking about the first pass, because we obviously saw the different angles and the plays being replayed and whatnot. How is it that we were able to see that he was potentially offside to where most of the time if they're checking it, they're still going to go have the ref check it?
I don't know how it's 2024 and we don't have the tennis technology in the ball, and on the field. That really honestly confuses me that tennis can have not a person do it. It's literally just a machine that says, "Oh, the ball hit here."
I think that VAR. I think that with offside, there's a lot more moving pieces because you have to have not just the ball, but it has to be where every single person is, and you have to know exactly where that person is. And
AI,
and it's not just in your feet though. It's like if
but AI.
exclusively feet decide. I mean, I think that's a great buzzword. But
I mean,
and that very well may be the answer in the future. I don't think that answer's there yet. I think that, like, not every call is going to be perfect. I think that's something that
no,
right.
as a fan,
There's
you have to accept. And I think that
right.
I think that's it's certainly tough to have that go against you. And it really does suck. But I think also at the end of 90 minutes, each team had an equal chance to win the game.
Correct.
Yeah,
And I think that that's really
and
just
they wanted it more.
And the team that deserved to win it after 90 in those last 30 minutes won.
Yeah,
I think that's really what the game was down to.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that fact. I'm just talking about like with the controversy. I just like kind of diving into the controversy of VAR, not only in MLS, just like over the sport as a whole. With like, most of it for me, honestly, at this point is what constitutes a handball anymore because it seems like it changes every freaking game.
Yeah, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I've gone around on it, where I've been an official, I've refereed at high levels, and I understand that like officiating. There's something that in basically every single game you can say the officiating impacted that, aside from like your biggest blowouts. It's like you can point to 2-3 moments and say, hey, the officiating changed that. Well, that's because 2 to 3 plays are going to change any close game.
Correct.
And so I think that it's really, while it is incorrect, and I agree, it's very frustrating. I think it's something that we just kind of have to say.
I mean,
we just move.
It's basic human, it's human error. Like ultimately, when it comes down to it, we didn't deserve to win that game. So, unfortunately,
yeah, it's certainly unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, and I so like that again. That's what I was out of bounds on. Clearly thinking that they would win the Open Cup final, but at least I didn't think they'd be in the MLS Cup final.
Whew.
Just like Eric thought over here.
Aaron,
both of you did. That's why I did
right.
that. That's why I did that. See, but
all right.
So, all right. Well, here we're gonna get to our break here in just a minute, guys. But as always, our third segment here is now Chandler's Charts. I asked our friend John here to go ahead and give me my topic for the day. And on our screen here, it's in reverse order. You mind rolling that down for me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Perfect. And so I'm going to go 10-1 here.
Okay.
And again, that's in reverse order.
Yep.
But you can see what's in front of you here. I feel like you're going to have some problems with some of these.
I already have problems.
That's fair. So number 10 is pancakes. Okay.
The topic being top 10 breakfast foods.
Yes. Sorry. Top 10 breakfast foods. By the way, we're taking a.
Oh, so how you have it numbered? Your 1 is 10.
Correct. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
I still have some problems, but they're much less problems now because when you said pancakes 10, I was really confused for a second. I was like, all right. And I was like, hold up, wait a minute.
So when I tried to put it in the note, I put 10.
Pancakes
I put 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and then when I started adding them from 1 to 10, it started to change it to like 16, 17, 18. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just said, screw it. Here we are.
Right.
So 10 pancakes. I'm not really a huge fan of them, but at the same time, if I like, it's a good, nourishing breakfast, right?
It's like they're delicious, but you always feel kind of terrible after eating them.
Yeah, I can only eat like 3 before, Now, if you give me some bananas in them, if I eat them with peanut butter, there's some ways I can spiff it up.
Cognac protein pancakes, those hit.
Yeah, it's like
those are good.
Again, like delicious, but you're going to need a nap after that.
Facts.
You're starting the day with something you need a nap for.
Yeah.
Pancakes.
Yeah, that's fair. Next one is not really a dish. It's more of a side. And I was told if I didn't incorporate this into my meal, we were going to have, or not my meal, but my list, we were going to have fights.
We would throw down. I want to throw down with where this is at already, but
it's a side. It's hash browns.
It's breakfast food. We didn't say breakfast meals. Breakfast foods.
Well, you're right. It's a food, but I like looking at the list. I clearly went meals for the majority of it.
Considering what you have after this one, but go ahead and continue.
Go ahead and continue. I am a...
Number 7 is more sentimental for me. So on cold winter days, my dad and I would eat this for breakfast. He would go into the kitchen. He would make this for me. It's one of my favorite memories growing up, and it's malto meal.
Okay.
And so, for me, it's a meal that I got to enjoy with my dad.
That's your 8, by the way, not your 7.
Yeah.
No, 8. Sorry.
Yes.
Again, it's
And
reverse
just,
order.
just and to clarify, make sure you also hit your 9 because I don't think you said it yet.
9 was hash browns.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know if you actually said hash browns or not because I went off course and
Yeah.
went and said
Yeah, I said 9 is hash browns. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. But so 8's malto meal.
Yeah, I can respect that. It's like I have very similar feelings about grits. Like that's something that I had as a child growing up. It's a very sentimental feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and also they are delicious, but like
They're very
it's,
similar.
It's very similar foods. Yes.
Waffle home grits.
Right. And so, like, it's a good,
Yeah.
solid breakfast, but it's not number one breakfast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
So 6, right? Or is it 7?
7.
7. Stupid numbers. It's Lucky Charms. I had to go with like a cereal. I feel like here. I wanted to go Cinnamon Toast Crunch potentially. That was a backup there, but
Sure.
you know, I'm only putting one cereal on this list.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
that's fair.
Lucky Charms is the one I would go with right now.
Okay.
Maybe one day it'll change, but right now
That's not a bad
still here.
choice.
So 5, monkey bread. Again, very good.
I do like monkey bread.
Monkey bread, very good.
I just don't know if I ever had it for breakfast. I know it is a breakfast item, but like
So that was something that in my house we always had that Christmas morning. We would have a loaf of monkey bread,
Yep.
and yeah, that was something that's very special growing up. I think that's great.
Yep.
Great
I
job.
love monkey
I think
bread.
that's a pretty good spot for that as well.
4, and this is or 5 is more specifically to the burrito we had the other day. That was a really good breakfast burrito in Dallas. But that was I had a lot of good burrito there. I kind of wish we were stopping back in Dallas to get another one.
Yeah,
But breakfast, like a good breakfast burrito,
mm-hmm.
you can't go wrong with
No.
it. It gives you your whole traditional meal in your hand.
yeah. I think that even like a great breakfast burrito is great. An average breakfast burrito is still pretty good.
It
like,
is still good, yeah.
It's like it's pretty hard to have like unless you're going way too light on your filling. It's hard to have a breakfast burrito.
Yeah, unless it's like a school lunch breakfast burrito,
Yeah,
where
but
it's like just eggs and a 4-day-old tortilla
Mhm.
with a couple pieces of sausage.
But like,
Yeah, but
especially
like, even
like
think about like the junior breakfast burrito at Sonic. Like that's what I think of as just like an okay breakfast burrito.
Yeah,
like,
it's
it's like it is the most basic breakfast burrito,
you get
and it's delicious.
something like for like a hangover is just a nice like thick, big, like greasy burrito. Like maybe even toast the side of each tortilla.
he likes a big, thick, juicy burrito.
Greasy.
Yeah, he does.
Juicy, greasy. I mean,
Yeah,
it works better in my analogy if I use juicy.
That's
there.
fair.
You don't really want a greasy. Never mind. Next one on the list is 4. It's waffles, and so they're basically like pancakes, but I like the texture better.
they have
That's
syrup traps.
Syrup traps.
Zero syrup
Exactly.
traps.
And I also watched somebody cut up some waffles like on a TikTok the other day, and it was like they put them on top of each other, then turned them on their side, and then syrup down the thing,
Mhm.
like the edges of basically. I was like, that's genius, and so like I kind of want to try that now, but
Yeah. So you're more a traditional waffle guy or a Belgian waffle kind of guy?
I'm more of a square. I don't know which one that is. I'm a square waffle guy.
Okay, I think it's like more traditional. It's like I think Belgian waffle it's a little bit too thick. You don't need that much of a syrup
No,
pocket.
no.
The ratio is all wrong.
Yeah, no, but like just a regular like like when I was growing up, we had a waffle maker. My parents probably still have it. It was a 4.
Yeah,
And the
four
bubble waffles.
Oh, yeah.
The bubble waffles get too soggy.
bubble waffle.
Like was it chick and waffle? If you've never been there, they serve like what's called like a bubble style waffle, and it's like almost like a paint
bubble.
like instead of like the dimples, it has like bubbles.
Oh, that's weird. That's basically
That's a bastard pancake.
Yeah, that's a fucking balloon.
That's pretty good, but
That's
it's too thin though for my liking. But
So-
I'm a traditional waffle kind of guy for sure.
fair. Also, they don't make pancake cones; they make waffle cones. So
Waffle cones.
Waffle cones.
pancake fries or waffle fries, guys. I mean, come on now. So
It's true.
number 3, can't go wrong here. Just a classic good French toast.
Yeah.
Okay. Like just bread, egg, cinnamon.
Not a big French toast guy.
And I mean, sure.
3.
But like you're wrong.
I mean, I had it a lot growing up. My mom would make French toast a lot. Even my sister for me, if like my parents weren't around, they would make French toast, and like there's a lot you can do with it. You could add fruit to it, whipped cream, syrup, like basically do it however you want. And like I do like enjoy the occasional French toast, but like for me personally, it's not a top 5 breakfast item for me.
Okay.
I think French toast is kind of the inverse of the breakfast burrito, where great French toast is incredible. Bad French toast can be really bad.
That is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
That is true. You got to have good French toast. Again, I'm assuming we got these breakfast foods at their peak here.
At their
okay?
peak, that's fair. Yeah.
Number 2, bacon. Simple enough.
A little high, but it definitely has to have a place on the
Only in
list.
cholesterol. It's perfectly ranked.
As far as breakfast meats goes, that's definitely my highest, other than maybe chorizo in like a breakfast burrito. But
again, this guy with the sausage. And number 1, biscuits and gravy, but specifically homemade scratch gravy. It can't be like packet gravy or any of that kind of weird nonsense.
Yeah.
And so
B&G will always be number 1 in my heart for
Biscuits
sure.
and gravy is absolutely
that might be just because we're Midwest dudes.
It is a top tier breakfast item.
It's like, I'm not sure I would put it as my number 1, but it is certainly up there. It is a phenomenal food.
Well, good thing this isn't John's charts.
It's not John's charts.
So, but with that, we are going to go ahead and take our break, guys. We will be right back after paying some bills. Again, YouTube may put an ad somewhere else. We're very sorry. I'm trying to get that worked on, but the more subscribers we have, the more ability I have to do that. So make sure that you like this as well and subscribe. We'll be right back. What up, guys, and welcome back into the second half, however we look at this, of Maybe I'm the Crazy One podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Aaron Stout. And John, do you want to say your last name? I don't want to do it if you don't want
John
to.
Quattlebaum.
They use the Q. So, and I'm Alex Chandler, your host, of course. As always, let's get into some football, though, after our break. We didn't really talk much about football before the break, other than your Michigan Wolverines.
Yep.
And let's kind of look back at our Week 2 results. Picks, by the way, we'll get to here in a little bit. And John will be a guest picker. We also have Eric's picks for you. A little rough week for some of us. Not me. I was fine this week.
That was 500, so I wouldn't say it was rough.
I mean, it's another week where you weren't the guy at top, so
That's fine.
Were you better than a coin?
I was a coin.
he was the coin.
It's like, I'd say a good week is, are you better than a coin?
I was better than the coin.
It's like, you have more knowledge than a coin. I expect you to do better than a coin.
Eric was not better than a coin.
No, he was not. He's not smarter than a coin. That's a new insult. I think that's a new insult, Eric. You're not better than a coin, bud. So the coin's smarter than you. Maybe you'll be better this week, though, with your first pick of the week. Probably not. But we'll get there later. So real quick, I think the important thing to talk about from this week's NFL is really what teams are real and what teams aren't real. Like, what are we seeing that is legitimate, that's going to be sustainable? What is kind of an outlier? So from the games that we picked, Ravens beat the Cowboys, Chiefs beat the Falcons, Eagles beat the Saints, Jets over the Patriots, Broncos over the Bucks, Seahawks over the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also your Lions over the Cardinals. The Rams beat the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings destroyed the Titans, which is
the
expected.
Texans.
No, the Vikings. Oh, yeah, you're right. The Vikings destroyed the Texans. The Packers destroyed the Titans.
Yes.
Jacksonville can't seem to win a game.
I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I was wrong.
I in my head I said Packers, and so that's where I was like,
gotcha.
"You're wrong," because I'm right. But I was getting to the Vikings next in my head too, so that's also where that was. But either way, kind of, what's your takeaway from some of these games that happened? Like, if you were to say, like, the result of the Ravens-Cowboys game, is that a representation of both teams? Is that who they really are? Is one of those teams different? Like,
I would say in terms of the Cowboys, I think that's about where they're at. I think that Ravens team, I think the Cowboys are better than what they played against the Ravens, but I think more or less, against top tier teams, I think that's more or less going to be the result. I think the Ravens, because we finally talked about it, they use Derrick Henry how you should use Derrick Henry. And wow, look at that. You freaking just blow out the Cowboys, and the Cowboys have, a fairly decent defense.
Well, we think they do. And I think
supposedly.
That's kind of where I would go with it, is that, like, the Cowboys, that defense, I think that's really who they are.
Right. Well, and like I said, I'm definitely more leaning to, this is what they are, maybe a little better than what we saw against the Ravens, but ultimately they'll probably crush the teams that are mid or below. But when it comes to who we think those top teams might be, they're gonna struggle.
Yeah,
This guy's a zoomer over here. He's using mid.
The Cowboys defense really does remind me of. I'm going to harken back to Michigan again because I'm going to go with what I know. The Don Brown defenses of like 2018 era, where they were absolutely suffocating against bad teams. They would typically go into the Ohio State game as one of the top 3 defenses in the country because a lot of blitzes, a lot of very tight man, where they were just going to say, our guys are going to be better than your guys.
Yeah.
And that's great.
And they're also built up on beating like Minnesota and Purdue and Iowa, who don't have great offenses at that time.
Yeah, it's like, and which is great. Right up until the moment that the guys across you can beat you, because once they beat you bad.
Yeah.
So you would see those games where they would go in and they would have these dominant defenses and they would give up 60 yards because you could just run a slant or a cross underneath and you'd get it and you'd just break it.
Yeah.
Every play. It was honestly like playing Madden almost, just watching those crossers. And I think that the Cowboys have not necessarily the crossers weakness, but they do have that kind of weakness where they're pressing very hard, and you'll see them blitz quite a bit. And I think that overall they're going to be very strong against bad teams. And I think that good teams, they're going to need to dial back more if they want to have sustained success.
I'll go one step further. They're going to be good against teams that don't have a good offensive line. They don't even have to be a good team.
Yeah.
Like if you have a below to below average, or you have an average to below average offensive line, they're going to eat you up.
Yeah.
Because they're not gap sound, but if you don't have a good offensive line, you don't have to be gap sound.
Yeah.
You can be all around, and that's what's made Micah so good is that other people on that line have been gap sound, and so he's been able to be that wild card. And now that nobody's doing that, Micah's getting caught out of position on these plays. I look back to that first drive with the Ravens. There was a keeper that Lamar had before the touchdown that he tried to stay with them, and he gave the ball to Derek. And so he was out of position there, and Derek got like a large run. And then on the touchdown, they basically ran that same play, but this time Lamar kept it. And Micah was he was on the guard, not on the tackle as an edge rusher. He was on the guard. And they also then had a tight end, I think, on that same side. So he was just completely walled off from the play. And that's more of what I think I see from this defense, is that if you have a line that knows how to play football, they're going to run for 6 or 7 yards a carry. And when they do that, you're going to get to 28-6 or whatever it was in the first half, because your offense isn't able to get going either. CD looks extremely frustrated in this offensive scheme. I don't know if it's because he got paid and he thinks he deserves these touches now. I don't know if it's because the team told him he's going to get these touches. We heard Stephen Drew, or is it Stephen Drew? Jerry Jones, not Drew. Wow, Stephen Jones. That's why it sounded wrong.
Yeah.
Stephen
Drew. Wow. What would that? Who would that even be? It's not even Baylor's coach. That's Drew Scott.
It's like I think that was just out of left field.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, Stephen Jones came out before CD got signed and said they want to get him 200 touches a year, or 200 targets a year, and that's like 17 a game.
Yeah, that's
a lot.
Maybe if you had Caleb Williams throwing the ball, because he's throwing the ball, 40 to 50 times a game.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that's a Giants Malik Neighbors type offense.
Right, but again, Malik Neighbors is the only thing that they have there. Now, granted, Dallas doesn't have a running game, but they keep trying to run the ball, and it's pretty soon nobody's going to start playing the run, and so their offense is going to continue to be stagnant.
Yeah.
The only reason that they were allowed in that game is, one, because John Harbaugh's allowed 9 losses of 10 plus or more entering the fourth quarter since he started his tenure with the Ravens, so they just have a propensity to give up these wins in these leads. But the other part of it is that they stopped playing a hard-nosed defense. They played more of a shell defense, get the ball back, and they expected Lamar and company to be able to move the ball. A couple times they couldn't, but ultimately when push came to shove, they got there, and just Justin Tucker couldn't hit field goals. So that's a different issue for them. But I think what we saw from the Ravens is more like what they're going to be. I think they played very similar to how they played against the Chiefs. And I think they played well against the Chiefs, just not well enough to win. Now, whatever they did last week was, against the Raiders, that's a mistake. That's a problem. But we're going into this game this week. We're going to pick it Bills-Ravens, and it's, it's really a real contest, and it's a
Yep.
1-2 team going against a 3-0 team.
But yeah, it's just what Ravens team are you going to get? Are you going to get the one from last week, or are you going to get the one from the previous two?
It's like, and are you going to get the one from last week in the first half or the second half?
Right.
It's like it's not even. The Ravens have shown a real lack of consistency, and that's certainly concerning. And while yes, the Ravens have also had a pretty difficult schedule to start the season, opening up against the Chiefs is always going to be a really tough game.
Mm-hmm.
Going to, I mean, where they go to.
No, they were at
they
home
were
against
with the
Vegas.
Raiders.
Against Vegas, yeah.
Yeah,
They're also weirdly bad at home.
yeah.
They lost to the Rams last year at home.
The Ravens just kind of will always have a couple games, and I think this is true of really every single team that is in the AFC North. Just a few games a year where you just kind of wonder, did football happen there?
Right. It's also like a weird stat, like the Cardinals are 3-0 against Mike McCarthy with Dallas. And they haven't won more than 5 games of the 3 years that he's been in, or 4 years that he's been in Dallas. So like, that's one of those things where it's like, how does this happen? It's kind of like I think every team really has those. It's just the Ravens.
Yep.
Those are more glaring because theirs are typically we're up 29 to whatever.
Yeah.
And then that is what it is. But Lamar improved his record against the NFC though to 21-1 in his career, or the AFC. Yeah, the NFC because he's in the AFC.
Yeah.
So
With that one loss being against the Chicago Bears,
not you guys.
not. It's like the one.
No, they beat the hell out of you guys last year.
Oh yeah, no, the Ravens have done terrible things lines last year, and then the game before was the delay of game Justin Tucker 66-yard.
That's great. All right, so moving on to, I guess, another good set of kickers, since that's where we took that. Harrison Butker and Young Koo. So, Chiefs won. Again, you can say there was or wasn't controversy in the game.
Uh-huh.
One thing that I think I need to walk back a little bit is how well Mahomes has played.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And if we want to sit here and say that Jalen Hurts hasn't played well, I can't say that Patrick Mahomes has played well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the only difference between the two of them is a Saquon Barkley drop pass.
Yeah.
That Jalen put on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was that I'm still flabbergasted by it. But the Falcons were still able to stay in that game, stay relevant. They played pretty good defense, in my opinion, as well. Justin Simmons also is the only player to pick off Mahomes as much as he has. He's picked him off 6 times now. The next closest, I think, was 2 or 4. And so, like, it's not close. And Justin Simmons, clearly being with your Broncos for so long, even though he couldn't beat them ever, he was still able to pick him off. And so,
we won last year. So it's not ever.
So anyway, I don't care about that snow game in Denver. Okay, Mahomes is typically great in snow games. Let's. Who was the quarterback then? Was it Drew? No, it was Russ. That's right, it was Russ because he didn't throw for like jack shit in that game, and you guys still somehow won because of the defense. It was like 2 picks and a fumble that happened in that game, right? Like you guys won by 3. It was like 19-16 or some weird nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, which of these teams do you think are more real? Right, and it's not more real. It's just who they are. Is this what they like? You know what I mean?
This is an easy one.
It's like I think that the Falcons, they did look very strong in that game. I really like what I've seen out of the Falcons. I think that they're definitely playoff contenders. I don't think that they're quite Super Bowl contenders. I think that they're kind of a step away from that. I don't love what I see out of Kirk Cousins, but I like it.
You like that?
I like it. It's like I think that their offense, it definitely looks more dynamic than it did under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, which is weird too because as going back to your point about Pittsburgh earlier,
mm-hmm.
they look okay-ish with Arthur Smith as their OC. It's weird.
Mike Tomlin will always find a way to make a team at least decent.
Mm-hmm.
With a bad offensive line every year. But back to this game. So Chiefs, Falcons.
They did look really strong. I think that the Chiefs, they just find ways to win the game. And I think that's until they stop finding ways to win the game, you kind of just have to give them the respect of they find ways to win. It's like, all right, the goal of the game is to win, and they're very, very good at that.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
Regardless of how you do it.
Mhm.
One of the only teams the last 7 years to win 12 games a year. So.
Yeah, it's like, and there's something to be said about just like you're a team that you know that you're going to keep yourself in every game. They've got a very, very good defense going to keep them in games. It's like, and you start to wonder how much like Mahomes keeps doing
Mahomes things.
and he's doing it with less and less. Though I think that Xavier Worthy, I think he's like very, very good. Travis Kelce, I think, is
very, very bad.
Not,
I'll say it.
Yeah,
who could have foreseen this?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, somebody who's, I mean, I've been on that train where it's like, he can only do it for so long. His style of play does age extremely well. If there's somebody who could be a successful tight end into his late 30s, it is Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Because for the past 8 years, what he's done is he's plowed around and he's found the spot that's open, and then he gets open, and somehow there's nobody within 30 yards of him.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, the Super Bowl itself proved that. Like,
yeah,
he'd have the best game, but when it mattered toward the end, who was there? Travis Kelce.
Yeah. But I think also one thing that I saw from the Chiefs game that it felt not Chiefs-like is on that Justin Simmons interception. If you watch from the All-22, you can see that as soon as Mahomes releases it, you can see Travis Kelce celebrating the touchdown.
Yeah.
And like that's just a lot of times you see that the Mahomes and Kelce, they've been very much in sync, and they know that like, hey, yes, this, like, you'll see him celebrate those things a lot, and where he'll kind of.
He was also wide open on that play.
He was definitely open on that play.
Yeah, because what was happening was the linebacker that was covering the flat was running up with, it wasn't Rasheed that was in the back, like the second fill there, because Rasheed was the one he was throwing to. It might have been Worthy, it might have been Watson, but either way,
I think it was
was it Wiley or was it Gray?
I think it was the.
Because they don't have Blake Bell anymore.
They don't have Blake Bell anymore. You're correct. Yes, it was one of the other tight ends, I believe, that was clearing out.
So yeah, but like he was like, when he could have double clutched that throw and just checked it down for a first down at that point. And I think that truly is where they're getting beat a lot, is that they want to have that high powered offense, and every single one of these plays, like the pick against the Ravens, he was trying to extend a play to get the ball downfield and got hit while trying to throw it. That was that interception that was directly to Roquan Smith. Last week they played the Bengals, right? And he threw 2 picks. Cam Britt Johnson, or whatever his name is, Cam Britt Taylor, their rookie or second year the D-back that made the one-handed grab. That was an excellent play. Like, and he got beat by Rasheed on that same play earlier. I understand trying to make the play, but again, it was a deep ball throw. And then the other one was just a mindless turnover over the middle.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of been the Chiefs or the MO on how to play against the Chiefs is you play a more conservative defense, and you kind of just wait for him to press.
Yeah,
and I think that generally Mahomes has done a pretty good job. He has not done a pretty good job. He's done a very good job of being patient for the most part, but he wants those big plays, and I think that if he keeps pressing for those big plays, I think that's something that could be at risk of compounding. I don't think that it will. I think that he's going to step back and say, hey, this isn't working, and he's going to reset. But I don't want to see it where it becomes an issue where if he keeps pushing for those big plays, you start to see more and more of those mistakes.
It's going to be interesting this week for sure against the Chargers and your guy, Jim Harbaugh. But I want your thoughts on this because, as a Broncos fan, you probably love seeing that the Chiefs are having some struggles.
I mean,
some struggles at 3-0. I'm
in the same camp as John. Like, when it comes to like both of these teams, like I think how I feel about them are kind of both were kind of on brand. Like, yeah, the Chiefs are a bit uglier than what we've seen in the past, but there's, again, as John alluded to, they're finding ways to win, and ultimately the end goal, regardless if it's ugly or not, just like I said, the Steelers, they're still finding ways to win, and ultimately that's all that matters is the W column.
Right.
There's going to be, I don't know, like in terms of what ways you clean whatever up, but when you have Patrick Mahomes, like, it's like there's not much you have to really do because he's gonna be him, and he's shown a propensity to get the job done. As far as the Falcons go, like I don't think that they've been blown out. Obviously, they're 1-2, right?
It was 18-10 for the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, it was
That
a
was
close
at
game.
home,
Mm-hmm.
and then they beat the Eagles because we don't know how to play defense and prevent series and scenarios.
Right.
And we also asked a rookie cornerback to play no huddle offense or defense when we haven't done that all season, and so that sucked. And then obviously the Chiefs. So they're 0-2 at home and they're 1-0 on the road.
But I mean, they've played two playoff teams.
Exactly, the Chiefs and the Steelers.
And
Technically, they played 3 playoff teams. All
Right.
3 teams made the playoffs last year.
right, but so 2 higher caliber,
Yes,
the
state of Pennsylvania.
yeah.
Oh wait, I don't know which way you mean here.
Just like how we talked about, the Ravens having a tough stretch to start the game. Obviously, I was high on the Falcons coming into, with just the changes they made, and I like Raheem Morris a lot.
I
And
love Raheem Morris.
Yeah.
I love all of his personality. His
Mhm.
leadership is exactly what that city needed. I hope that Arthur Blank lets him have his thing. I'm sorry.
no, you're
Yeah.
good. But I think it's something to be said about the Falcons team. The Falcons team too is that you're in these close games. So what tweaks do you need to make to where you're on that other side? Because controversy or not, at the end of the Chiefs game, you still had your chances to, like we alluded to during the sporting LAFC stuff. You had your chances still to win that game, and you just didn't. So you just need to fix, make those key minor adjustments or major key adjustments in those moments to where you're on the other side of that. Because if you flip that, Bijan, breaks out and gets that run, then we're talking different thing. The Chiefs are 2-1, and then the Falcons in turn are also 2-1, and maybe they're for real.
I mean, you can say they'd be 2-1. There was still 3 minutes left or 2 minutes left in the game at that point.
Well, I'm just talking about in terms of potential, potentiality.
Yeah.
But I think they're showing signs of growth, which was obviously even me being high on them was there's going to be growing pains. You have an aging quarterback with an Achilles, which obviously we've touched on a lot. And just there's a lot of new moving parts that everyone has to mesh and get used to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're starting, I know the wins and losses aren't, what you want in terms of they probably should have, won that Steelers game with, you would think on paper, looking at the personnel, yeah, we probably should have won that game and didn't, but they're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say both teams are kind of on brand for, who they typically, or Chiefs are on brand for who they usually are. I would say the Falcons are getting to where they think they should be.
Yeah.
I mean, if you told me before the season, after 3 weeks with this schedule, what do you think the Falcons the record would be?
Mm-hmm.
It was 1-2.
Yeah,
Mhm.
1-2 was a good result.
Then what we thought would happen was probably they beat the Steelers and lose to the Eagles,
Yeah.
and not lose to the Steelers and beat the Eagles.
Yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, you are where you want to be. You
Mhm.
also won the more important game
Mm-hmm.
out of all 3 of those, your NFC opponent
Yes.
rather than your AFC opponents. And we talk about it all the time. You don't really, those games matter, but they don't matter outside of you split with your whole division and
Right.
you guys all have the same record. Then it goes to AFC. So that's even after it goes to conference. So again, conference more important. So they're going to have a tougher task this week with the Saints, though.
Mhm.
And so that's always a dogfight. It's not one we're picking. It was the last one that we left on the cutting board.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go ahead and transition to that game on my team, which, if you guys noticed, new shirt. So we got game days are for the birds because they are.
Shout out to Atlanta Falcons.
Go Birds.
Shout out to the Eagles.
Not
This
the
guy.
mythical Seahawk bird.
Not the mythical Seahawk bird, not
No.
the unkindness of ravens.
No.
But,
Which we found that out yesterday after looking at, we're like, what is a group of those called?
it's ubiquitously known as a flock, but it is the actual term is an unkindness. So you're now watching us for knowledge. Congratulations. And so, but the Eagles, like I alluded to earlier, beat the Saints 15-12. Weirdest scored game ever.
Barn burner.
And if you think that Jake Elliott kicked 5 field goals, you'd be sorely mistaken. He kicked 0 field goals.
I thought Shuddy kicked one and he missed.
No.
Oh yeah, he did kick one and miss. It was
Yeah.
from 60 yards, I think.
Yeah,
So
because I would know because he's on my dynasty league. So
it was nobody wanted him to kick that field goal.
he's now on
when
the
he kicked
bench
it.
in my dynasty league.
And he's no longer the record holder for the longest field goal at the Link now.
Yep.
That was taken over recently by Temple's kicker.
Yeah,
Correct.
it was a 66-yarder the other day.
64. 64. I just I saw it pop up originally, but when we were out talking pre-show and stuff, when I was scrolling, I had come across it again that showed that he'd beaten Jake Elliott's record.
Yep. And Brandon Aubrey had like a 66-yarder this week, I think is what it was. 65. Whatever the record was, he was one below it.
Yeah, record 66.
And they were like, why are you kicking it from the 45-yard line? That's a hell of a decision. And that got them to 6 points, I think. And so, good, congratulations, Cowboys. Keep kicking field goals.
Yeah.
You said something about Brandon Aubrey having more points than it was fantasy
points. It was not fantasy points because like I went and looked at his fantasy points and I when I was at least like Dynasty League, I think it's like actual points.
Oh.
Like in like the game itself.
Well, I mean, I think
because like when you think about it, like we talked about Patrick Mahomes, like granted finding ways to win, but hasn't thrown a whole lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right.
Cowboys are kicking hella field goals. Where like we talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. the one game when what you said when you alluded to it's just the one quarter, and but like when I was naming off the players now that makes more sense than the fantasy points because like obviously like QBs get a lot at least via our Dynasty League for different things compared to like just a regular like fantasy league that you would get, but. Yeah, no, it was actual like league points.
I have seen that it is also true with fantasy where I believe he'd be tight end number 1 on the season. He would be running back 6. He was like a top 10 wide receiver this season if he were like the fantasy season as well. He's having his insane.
So shout out to also our friend Braden,
Who
took Aubrey way early, and he texted me when he did this and said. Brandon Aubrey.
He also took Butker too, didn't he? Didn't he grab both of them?
He did pick kickers in back-to-back rounds before anybody had picked one.
Because basically it was 1 and 2, and then everyone else is like, you have Aubrey, Butker, basically like 1A, 1B, and then there's everyone else down here.
Meanwhile, I didn't take one of the 52 rounds that we had, so that is what it is. But back to the Eagles, they got the job done. And really what they did was get the job done on defense, specifically. Jalen Carter looked like a monster among men.
Yep.
Jordan Davis finally showed up for the first time in 3 seasons. So that's fun. He was a Georgia guy. I was about to say Michigan guy, but that's Brandon Graham.
They're the Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Yeah. Nakobe Dean, by the way, looks really good. Okay? Like, as a linebacker, he looks really good. He looks really short, but he looks really good. But he's not nearly as good as what Zach Bond has been.
As long as you've got them all drivers.
Yes.
Yeah. So your Georgia players aren't driving themselves.
I see. Yes. No, Georgia players are not allowed to drive in Philly, actually.
Okay, good.
Not anymore. Shout out to Kirby Smart and his 21 arrests since the Jalen Carter incident a year and a half ago.
I think they're up to 22. I think there's another one.
Okay, well, there you go. I actually just checked it right now. The 23rd just happened. So nobody saw my screen didn't even turn on. I'm guessing that it occurred. And yet still no disciplinary action for Kirby Smart. We'll wait for that. So
don't hold your breath.
If I did, I would die. But either way, what seemed to die was the Saints' offense against the Eagles. And so again, I ask, what's more real, or what's the real pieces to take from this?
I think really, one, the Eagles' defense is for real. I think that is something that we all kind of
hoped.
I wouldn't say hope, but I think that it's something that at least I expected coming into the season that the Eagles' defense would bounce back and be stronger this year. I think that it also showed, as far as the Saints go with their offense, that they are exactly who the Saints usually are. Which is they can boom. They are Rashid Shaheed personified as an entire offensive unit, where they will either blow up and they will have an incredible game. Alvin Kamara will have 6 touchdowns, or he will have 23 touches for 16 yards.
Yeah,
it is really a one or the other, where they will either blow up or they will do absolutely nothing. And that game was a game where they didn't do much of anything.
No. And they Greg Olson did a really good job of highlighting it during the game as well. We were playing 5 down personnel versus nickel personnel, which is typically 4 down with more linebackers. You're playing more coverage there. And the first 2 games of the season, really, like, the teams that we were playing, with the Packers having all of those wide receivers, with the Falcons having at least the believed talent in Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And the believed of more is for Pitts rather than London. But then also Bijan, obviously. It didn't. Now, you would argue, I would say, you should probably play 5 down against Bijan. But, I don't care. It's, we lost the game. It is what it is. But they were able to play 5 down. They also lost their center and starting right guard in the first and third quarters, respectively. So, they were down a little bit of their line. But I think that's also, again, more prominent and predicated on the Eagles' defensive side being just more together. Bryce Huff got benched this week as well. So, while I don't love us having a guy that makes $17 million on the bench, at least we're not, the Jets, who have a $15 million man sitting at home, not on their bench, while they have players going down with Achilles injuries at that same position. So, and we didn't trade for him; we just signed him. So, I can feel in my bones a Hassan Reddick for Bryce Huff trade coming, which would ultimately mean we traded Bryce Huff for a 3rd round pick.
I think it's a little optimistic there, but
hey, man, I just don't know what to take from that. I got to see what they do this week against the Bucks. Mainly because they not let us down, but kind of.
I mean, in terms of pick, they let me down for my rankings as far as those go.
Yeah.
As far as my team goes,
they made you happy.
It did make me happy.
So, and we'll get to the Bucks here in a minute. Apparently, we're talking about almost the whole entire NFC South. I didn't realize we did that until just now. But
what division?
I think something that we have to take from this. It's a weird thing for me to take. Jalen Hurts is a real quarterback. And I understand, how do you get that from this game?
Elaborate.
Let me explain.
All right, I'll hear you out.
Let him cook.
So, what's one of the main things you want from your quarterback from a personality perspective? The ability to let the last play go, right?
Yeah.
And say, here's what it is. And he 100% is able to do that, it seems. Yeah. He's also 100% the emotional leader of that team. And I would say that he's the only adult in the room when it's him and Nick Sirianni and the rest of the team, in terms of leadership, right? And so I think Kellen Moore has been very good for him. And while he keeps making these mistakes, it almost felt like the mistakes this week he made were not 100% on him. The fumble was. I can't excuse the fumble he had. That was terrible. But the pick, Devontae Smith should have ran a flatter route. Devontae Smith should have been there. You're going to trust Devontae Smith, who doesn't drop balls, to catch that ball.
Yeah.
And so when you look at what he is doing, as hard as it is to sit here and be like, I love our offense, because I don't.
Yeah.
I think our offense has been really bad. One thing that he has been able to do is be dynamic, be a playmaker, not be Caleb Williams-esque, where he's spinning out of plays to try to go make a play and throws a pick. Instead, he's, fumbling, trying to run to the goal line because he's not protecting the ball.
Yeah.
And while I made fun of Brock Purdy last week for the sack, fumble, interception thing that he had against the Vikings, I can't excuse what Jalen Hurts did, where he got tackled by air and fumbled. So, that sucks. But when the game mattered, he was able to make his one read that he's available to do as a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, but a good quarterback. Because that's all he does, is he reads one and then he gets lost in the coverage. He doesn't find guys again open in coverage a lot of times. And with our offensive line, just like you have seen, good quarterbacks can go downfield. I'll even say great quarterbacks have the ability to at least look downfield and find that.
Yes.
And when Jalen is doing that, it's either it ends up typically as a pick, or it ends up as an incompletion. There's very few times the play is drawn out and then we get a completion deep downfield.
Yeah.
Especially without AJ Brown.
I think that Jalen Hurts is one of the least offensive line dependent quarterbacks in the league.
Yes.
For exactly that reason, which is a real shame on a team that has a good offensive line.
Such a shame.
Yeah, it's like that is an absolute waste to have somebody who could really have 95% of the success he does with a bad offensive line.
That being said, they probably scored 27 to 30 points in this game if they have a competent head coach who decides to run fake tush pushes on 4th and 1 from the 13 with 1 timeout and 14 seconds left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, again,
my opinion is that there are about 15 coaches in the league that are not actively detrimental to their quarterbacks.
Okay.
And I would say that Nick Sirianni is not one of those 15.
He's not detrimental, or he is detrimental?
He is in ways detrimental to
He's detrimental to the team, but clearly the team loves him. And that's like the weird part.
Yeah, it's like that. And that's something that, at the end of the day, because Nick Sirianni is very much a emotional leader.
Mm-hmm.
And if, as an emotional leader, if you get your guys to rally around you, you have done what you are there to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to rely on your coordinators. And sometimes you rely on Matt Patricia, and sometimes you rely on Kellen Moore.
Right, and like the part that also is confusing to me, I know he's the head coach, so clearly he has the opportunity to be able to do these things. But I remember in the offseason us talking about it, and it being he was removed entirely from the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't going to be making those decisions. And when we were watching the Packers game, I think I even said it on the show the week after, I said that first drive was a Nick Sirianni drive. It wasn't a Kellen Moore drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you when Nick Sirianni calls plays, because the play design looks completely different. There's motion in Kellen Moore's offense.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every single play of Kellen Moore's offense has motion. Kellen Moore's plays also get about 3 to 5 yards per play. And Nick Sirianni's end up with Jalen Hurts looking around the field trying to find somebody open.
Yes.
Because he only runs medium plus routes.
Mm.
And what are teams playing now? A shit ton of cover 2.
Yeah.
And you can't throw medium plus routes except to the boundaries, which Jalen's not very good at doing.
Yeah.
Against cover 2 routes. So you need to have more of those underneath crossers. You need to have the Jahan Dotson assist yards for Dallas Goedert to go crazy. And so that's what brings me to our favorite thing, not I guess that we're going to talk about this week. We're making a new stat, guys, and we're going to monitor it ourselves here at the show. The NFL is now getting assists the same way that NBA does, where we're going to have assist yards for players. So this week, I think Dallas Goedert had a 61-yard catch, and 57 of those yards are attributed to Jahan Dotson.
Does this have anything to do with the fact that we have a bet on whether or not Jahan Dotson has 700 yards by the end of the season?
Irrelevant. But no,
because I think right now he's sitting at a strong 15.
Strong 15 on 3 catches. It's gone up every week.
Man, that efficiency.
It's gone up every week. The first week it was 0 for 0. Then it was 1 for 7. Now it's 2 for 8.
Man, by the end of the season, he's going to be Malik Neighbors.
I mean, if it were exponential growth, yes, I agree with this.
Even if it's linear growth.
I mean,
that's 17 catches by the end of the week. Or 16 catches by the end of the season.
I mean, Jesus Christ. Here's the thing. Yes, Jahan Dotson hasn't been the player I expected him to be yet. Is that what you want me to say?
No.
But here's what I am going to say as well.
I'll accept it.
AJ and Devontae are both potentially going to be out this week.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying. I'm not putting it out there. I'm just saying. Our wide receiver 1's Jahan Dotson.
Sounds like the Eagles are going to struggle on offense this week.
Britton Covey is also out with a shoulder injury. So,
man, you're making a really compelling case for a really great game.
It's going to be Jahan Dotson and Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson, baby.
Sounds like a great time to take a nap.
Well, I expect you to back that up with your picks later, buddy.
All right.
So, but we'll move on to your team. Actually, no, we aren't. We're gonna take a quick sidebar for the Jets Patriots. Do we care?
No,
not really.
Okay, cool. Broncos Bucks.
Do we care?
The Patriots lost, and the Jets finally won a game.
The Patriots lost. Jets won a game. They're now 2-1. So I mean, they do deserve some credit there. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers looked really good. He looked like he could potentially one day be a top 10 quarterback.
He could,
but not right now.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the one thing I'm going to give kind of for the Patriots is I did like what I saw at Drake May, but I do like
The
their
one drive.
Yeah, the one drive.
That was so dumb.
It was very dumb, but I do love the patience that they're showing with him. I think that's very important. I don't think that's a situation that he is ready for right now. So I do really appreciate that they're showing that patience with him.
I get that it's patience that they're showing. My issue is that he showed in that game against a good defense. We think. I still have my reservations.
Yeah.
On the Jets entirely. Brees Hall, I think, is widely overrated. I think.
Yeah, there's no reservation there for him.
Yeah, there's no reservation there.
I disagree with that one, but
that's been 27 games since Aaron Rodgers has thrown for 300 yards.
Yeah.
Granted, 283 this week. I kind of got lucky there. And so, but he did play well, and so I do have to give him the credit there. The defense did hold down an offense that couldn't score against anybody all season. To 3 points, and so they deserve some credit. But Drake May looked really good.
Yeah, I like what I see out of Drake May so far, but I again think that what they're doing with very slowly bringing him into the offense, he may not sit the whole season. He may be mid-season he takes over, but I really do like that they are easing him into that offense.
But they're completely cutting off their ability to compete this year.
Do you think that they are competing in that division with Drake May this year?
I don't know, but we saw the switch from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, and all of a sudden they look like a team full of Pro Bowlers.
Okay, but do you think that they're competing in that division this year? And Bryce Young is another example of somebody who I'm going to go with as thrown into a bad situation immediately. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of instances of this where good quarterbacks can get thrown into a bad situation and their head and they really struggle for the first times in their career.
Yeah, Sam Darnold.
Yeah. And they really struggled to bounce back. And
Carson Wentz.
It's did
you know that his
years to bounce back?
I think Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence's numbers were all pretty similar
for the weekend.
No, like in terms of their first X amount of games, like in terms of win-loss, completion percentage.
Yeah, Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence. Yes,
and Bryce Young.
I don't want to not necessarily harp on Trevor Lawrence too much, but
not necessarily touchdowns, but every other aspect of their throwing and all everything encompassing other than touchdowns is basically the same.
I will say that first year of Trevor Lawrence was under Urban Meyer.
Okay, we got to stop at this point.
But we also have to stop defending him.
Yeah.
Because Trevor Lawrence is not a good quarterback.
It's the same thing that we kind of talked about with Tua, where it's are you a good quarterback or not? You can kind of get away and say when he was on a rookie deal, you're getting by with good for value quarterback. The second you pay him $250 million, it's no longer about value. It's about what you can produce. And right now, he's been 0 for 8 in his last 8 games.
Yeah, I still believe in Tua. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, I'm out on him.
So, but I don't know how
that has nothing to do with the Broncos or the Buccaneers
or the Jets or the Patriots, I guess. But let's go to your guy, Bo Nix, because he's another rookie quarterback that's yet to throw a touchdown.
No, but he did run for one.
He did run for one, but in a week where Caleb Williams threw for 360 yards,
yep,
and Jaden had maybe the rookie game of the century.
Jaden did have a great game.
He had a phenomenal game.
My rookie of the year pick looks really good right now. Just saying that. I don't know why I'd be a Cowboy there, but but yeah. So what do you feel about Bo after week 3?
I will say one thing I do hope is that he has more bathrooms than he has touchdowns, because that'd be a real bad situation otherwise.
I think right now actually Russell has more bathrooms in his house in Pittsburgh than he does touchdowns on the season too. Just so you know.
But I mean, I feel better about it. I don't like him throwing the ball 40 plus times a game, and finally we have a game where he doesn't throw that much. Granted, there's different nuances to the game than that, but I think him not throwing the ball that much is better. But we were also able to run the ball for the first time all season, which again, I also alluded to, hey, we can run the ball. That's going to at least open up something to allow.
Jaleel McLaughlin looked really good.
Jaleel McLaughlin is that guy. I really believe
Tyler
he's that
Beatty
guy.
also had a great game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you can at least open something up for him, granted, yes, I know he didn't throw for any touchdowns, but they did get the win, and ultimately that's what matters. It's a stepping stone. So, like, whether or not it's a side of things to come, obviously I'm not too like confident on it, but at least I'm seeing a sign of growth. But obviously, it doesn't all come down to him per se, because I mean, kind of like in the what was that we were talking about, with the, the I don't know where I was going with this. I had a thought and then
Was
I
it
lost
with the rookies? Was
No.
it?
Or was it just Chiefs find ways to win? Steelers find ways to win?
No, I was gonna like compare it to like a player basically, but I couldn't remember. But either way, I lost total train of thought. But I mean, it's a start. Now, whether or not he takes it and runs with it, we'll see, or goes out of baby crawl most likely. But
It doesn't seem like Sean wants him to go to baby crawl though. That's the big, again. You have a Sean Payton problem, at least on the offensive side. I mean, the defense seemed to show up this week. That's good. Now, granted, it was against a team that again we were questioning if they're actually as good as they are, or if it was more of like week one against the Commanders. You're playing a team that hasn't done the Dan Quinn system ever, and now they look really good. They're winning. They're leading the division. Shout out to me again, by the way, saying the Commanders are going to be good this year, and finally I was right. I've said it the last 3 years, in case you didn't know this. And then the other part of it is like, who did the Bucks play in week 2? They played you guys.
They played Detroit.
And
they looked great.
They looked fine-ish, but again, like Aiden Hutchinson had 4.5 sacks. That line didn't look good, and you guys capitalized on that too.
And I will say, they were on.
I
think they were on their fourth stringed offensive tackle, and they were not chipping up on Aiden Hutchinson, and that is just absolutely criminal to do. That there should be charges
it's definitely
attempted manslaughter on Baker Mayfield for that.
Definitely a choice that they made.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice, as we say.
Yeah, it was certainly a choice. But I did like a lot of what I saw out of the Buccaneers in that Lions game, and I think that this game felt weird to me. The Bucks Broncos game. I think that overall, I still really do like the Bucks. I think that they're.
I think this game was an outlier for both teams.
Yeah, I think it really was.
Yes.
Okay. It's I think I like the NFC South this year. I think it's a very fun division this year.
Yeah, especially with Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
The Red Rifle.
Yeah, for in terms of like being real or not, I think this game was just an outlier for both games potentially. Like, I don't think that's who the Bucks are. I don't necessarily think that we can't replicate what we did here, but now whether or not that translates to a win, probably not. But like I said, I think it's more or less just a one-off.
Well, you're going to get a similar chance this week because you're going to get, while you were facing a top 10 receiver last week, you're not facing one this week.
No, you're right.
And so there's no Mike Evans in this game.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what Pat Surtain too. Listen, Chris is getting the yards now. I'm happy for Chris. Mike Evans is the best receiver on that team. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Will always be.
Okay.
But let me pay.
Dolphins.
Let me
Dolphins.
Let me cook. You told him to let me cook. You gotta let me cook too.
No, the let me cook was to you, sir. That was what I said to you earlier. That was not for him.
You told him to let me cook.
Oh, this is true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You wanted to say, let me do my thing.
This week, we're going to see if they can do that to kind of marry the last 2 games we talked about together as you play the Jets. That's all I wanted to say. So, Seahawks, Dolphins. Battle of marine animals.
One of them is real.
Yeah, Seahawks are real.
Yeah, the Seahawks are real.
So, is Mike McDonald this good, or they played a weak schedule? What are your thoughts on that?
I think, Mike McDonald is a fantastic coordinator.
Okay.
And I think that he's done a really, really good job as a head coach. I think their defense is phenomenal. That said, playing the Dolphins when they don't have Tua is
extremely lucky.
And I wouldn't say extremely lucky.
It's like playing Old Dominion.
It really is. The Dolphins with Skylar Thompson under center, bless his heart. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy, but he is
K-State alum.
It's he is not an NFL quarterback.
No.
I mean, he
Who's
is.
the other option?
He's
Mike
paid.
White?
No, it's your boy.
Oh,
Tim
Tim Boyle, who is also not an NFL quarterback. Tim Boyle, another one of those guys, somebody like a Matt Castle, who you wonder, how on earth did this guy ever get a job in the league? Because
Nathan
in college,
Peterman.
he was truly horrific. And then somehow he got a spot on the Packers, and he's just continued to stay with the league. I'm guessing he is a phenomenal guy in the quarterback room. He's just somebody who should stay in the quarterback room as a quarterback coach and should not be somewhere wearing a uniform.
It's like that one. He's a streamer now. Kurt. He's like the similar type of guy, which he's. I watch all of his videos on that. To be fair, so like I can get.
Is he the one that wears like the 49ers like get up or whatever the gear? Is that who you're talking about?
No, he's a former NFL quarterback, but he used to play for the Packers. I think he might have been on another team since then, but he did a lot of college football stuff when it first came out.
Okay.
He talks more about like zones and schemes and trying to break down defenses and such on Madden. So specifically, and then recently this year he started doing actual like game film breakdowns. So I've actually watched some of that too. He's a really good person to watch if you're wanting to get smarter in some of these games. But I think to say that Mike McDonald is good is there. I mean, we had questions. I thought before the season, I was like, I wasn't sure how good they'll be. I think they'll be good enough, but year one under Mike McDonald, they're going to struggle a bit. And that doesn't seem to have been the case.
No.
Now, that being said, they've played who?
Exactly.
Like, that's the thing.
I think that we find out a lot more about that team on Monday night.
Probably. And they play the Tigers. Wow. Tigers, by the way, shout out to Detroit, just winning at everything right now. Those Cats are potentially going to be in the playoffs.
As long as they don't get swept by the Chicago White Sox they're in.
Well, we're not going to know by the White Sox Twitter because they don't tell anybody what the scores of those games are anymore.
They might give updates on wins. We don't know.
We'll find out today because they are up 7-0 as we speak.
But the Seahawks played my lowly Broncos in week 1 and then played the Patriots in week 2,
yeah, so
which
like
they won in overtime.
Yeah, like I said, they haven't played anybody. But they did. That was a road game. They did struggle a little bit there. Dolphins, like you said, I don't want to hit a team when they're down.
Yeah, it's like with Tua, they're a great team. Without Tua, they are.
With Tua, they're a good enough team.
They're a very good team with Tua.
Their defense is still.
I think that they have a good enough defense.
Okay. I mean, you have any other thoughts on this?
No.
All right. Well, then I guess it's time to do some picks. You haven't been with us for picks, but I know you've heard us do picks or seen us do picks, watch the show. So basically what we do, I didn't ask Eric for any scores, but we like to try to give a score for the games that we pick. We pick 6 games a week. We typically pick the games that involve our 3 teams.
Yep.
And then we try to find 3 games throughout the rest of it, whether it's primetime games or the best games of the slots. So we'll start with the primetime game that comes out tonight. Cowboys versus Giants. Eric's pick was the Giants. He thinks Malik Neighbors is going to go, and I quote, off.
I mean, I think that Malik Neighbors will go off in a 17-27 loss by the Giants.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put the score, but I see what you did there.
Giants will put up 2 touchdowns, both by Malik Neighbors, in a loss. I think that Malik Neighbors really is the truth. I think that by the end of the season, he's going to be not quite the best receiver in the division. I think that CeeDee Lamb has just done way too much to ever say that a player after 1 season is the best in that division.
Yeah, AJ
Brown but he is absolutely going to be in that conversation. I think that he is the truth. He's looked so good.
Yeah, I mean, him, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, they're all about the same
Him and
spot.
CeeDee Lamb.
AJ Brown. What do you think?
I'm going along the same lines. This division is always weird in how they play each other. But I think the Cowboys bounce back. I don't think it'll be pretty by any means, but I think they take care of business. And I was going to say 27-10, but Malik still gets his yards, gets a touchdown at least, but 27-10 for me.
I mean, I really want the Giants to win this game.
I
I'm
do
not
too.
gonna lie. Like I want the Giants to win this game, not because I want them to be good again.
I just like
I
being, I just
kind
like
of
being
like
a
watching
Cowboy.
the Giants right now.
I like being a
I like
Cowboys
Neely
hater.
Neighbors,
Like
but
it's
I kind of like Danny Dimes.
okay, you're getting weird right now.
He's not good.
This
He's not-
show's
he's not
been
good.
going for a little bit. You're getting a little weird with it.
But he's fun.
He's a guy.
He is fun.
So when we were talking about the Cowboys earlier, what did we say? What did I say specifically about the Cowboys and their defense?
If they play a team with a bad offensive line, they're going to dominate.
And so why do we think that the Giants have a good offensive line?
I don't think they have a good offensive line at all.
Okay, so 31-3 is the Cowboys score. Because they absolutely every time they play the Giants, they've won 12 in a row, by the way.
Ooh.
They're on a Mahomes versus the Broncos streak, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Dak he's won 12 consecutive games against the Giants, and so I think this is 13 clearly. This is the one that I think the Giants could win if they're out of the two that they'll play them, because they'll play them later in the season. But
at Jerry World.
yeah, 31-3 is kind of what I'm going with score there. I don't think it's close. We'll go to my game next, Eagles-Bucks. It's in the noon slot. We don't get Tom Brady this week. We'll probably get some dummy, not even Greg. I don't think we're going to get Greg Olsen. Jonathan Vilma is probably who we're going to get. And so, who you got?
Well, it depends. I have questions about. If most likely that you're not going to have Smith or AJ Brown. Like, I don't think, like, unless Saquon has a game to where he's literally carrying the team, I don't know. Granted, obviously the Bucs didn't play well last week, but if the Eagles' offense can't stay on the field, that means you're giving the Bucs more opportunities. You're giving Baker more opportunities to win.
Yep.
So with that, I don't want to, and I don't like it, but I'm going to go to the Bucs, just because I have questions about. Now, if at least one of those two play, I think that might be enough for the Eagles to win, but I have it 24-21 Bucks.
Also, just so you know, it is expected that Mekhi Becton and Lane Johnson will also miss the game.
Okay.
And so it's AJ hasn't been at practice yet. Devontae's still in concussion protocol. Lane was in concussion protocol. Per Adam Schefter, it's hard for players to come back currently under the new restructured concussion rules, which for good reason too.
Yes.
Back the same week that they go out, and so we're not expecting to play with any of those guys. But shout out to Tyler Steen and Fred Johnson, who played exceptional against the Saints this last week in spot coverage. So what do you think is going to happen?
I'll keep this short and sweet. I think Baker's got a bounce back game. It's going to be 23-10.
Bucks.
Bucks. The Eagles just simply do not have the weapons healthy.
Okay, that's fair. So I've given a bunch of stats on the Eagles. How many points do they score when AJ Brown doesn't play?
15 or less.
Okay, do you know how much they score when AJ Brown and Devontae Smith don't play both of them?
No.
We don't know because it's never happened.
happened.
It's never happened. We've always had one or the other. And I remember last year when we played the Bucks, we scored 9 points in the playoffs without AJ Brown. And so it was.
But you do have Saquon Barkley now.
We do have Saquon Barkley. Additionally, what did Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery do in that game?
Not a whole lot.
Really?
Not a whole lot. They did wind up combining for, I believe it was a little bit over 100 yards, but really they struggled to establish the run. The interior line, and especially the linebackers of the Buccaneers, played a phenomenal game against Detroit.
What did these guys do against the Bucs last week?
We won.
What'd you do with the ball?
We ran.
And how'd that go?
Went well.
It went well. I would say the Commanders also ran a lot. It was just Jaden Daniels running a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thing. Right now, where we stand, Jalen Hurts is better than Jaden Daniels. Right now, physically, not overall, not as a player in totality, as a NFL quarterback, week 4 of the NFL season, Jalen is better than Jaden.
Okay.
For perpetuity, Jalen's better than Bo.
Yeah.
And so...
Talking about hitting the team when they're down. Yeah, damn.
And so Eric took the Eagles.
Okay.
My question is, can we hold the Bucks to less than 15?
Can you?
I can't pick against the Eagles. It's just not in my blood.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be here next week. Well, not here, but like on the
Yeah.
show, clearly, in a new Eagles shirt because the Eagles are going to win 21-16.
Thinking 2 defensive touchdowns there.
I'm thinking.
Well, he thought they're scoring the same amount of points as I said. I just said Baker scores more. I said 24-21.
Yeah, see, he doesn't understand football. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So next game is your game, actually, Broncos and Jets. It's in MetLife. It is another,
Can't wait to see how many players we lose to injury here.
Nat Hackett versus Sean Payton game. Is it the old Broncos coach, or is it going to be the new old Broncos coach that wins?
At this point, I'm fine with just taking the L and letting my record go to crap if it means that we win. Because it seems to work. It worked last week. It did not work when I picked them against the Seahawks. It didn't work when I picked them against the Steelers. But it did work when I changed it up and we did it against the Bucks. So I think the Jets win pretty handedly. I think Aaron Rodgers is able to do what he wants because he is better than Baker Mayfield.
I'll give you that. Yes,
Yeah.
he's better than Baker.
So
not going to throw for 300 yards, I bet.
But yeah, I'm going to say it's probably 30-10.
30-10. Okay.
Yeah.
That was actually my exact score is 30-10 Jets.
I thought you were going to pull up fast when I say the Broncos.
No.
Let me triple check Eric's pick here. I'm pretty sure he took the Jets as well. Let's see. Giants, Eagles, Jets. Okay, yeah. So he took the Jets here. I can't pick the Broncos.
No.
Not after I go,
No.
Jalen Hurts is better than Bo Nix in perpetuity. So, but I think it's a low-scoring game. I think it's more of a defensive game on both sides because, unlike you guys, I don't think Aaron Rodgers can do a whole lot. And so I do think that the Jets' defense is better than the Bucs' defense, but I don't think the Bucs' defense is that great. They got a good young talent that isn't ready for NFL level like maturity. And so like Yaya Diaby is one of the guys I think of there. Their right edge that's really young. He's going to be a good player in this league, but he's not quite, even Shaq Thompson yet. And so I'm going 27-20. So Vikings-Packers is the next game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start with that. I think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup, first of all.
This is the game I think I'm also excited the most about.
I think this is going to be a really great game. I believe that Jordan Love is not going to be back yet. He's still working his way back. He was practicing some this week, but I think that he's still not going to be fully ready for game play. And I really just like what O'Connell's been doing in Minnesota. I think that Minnesota's going to win this one. I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game. I'm going to go with 17-13.
Who?
Minnesota,
sorry.
Same thing as John. I'm really excited about this game, barring not having any dog in the fight for this other than who I pick. But this is probably one I'll be watching over the weekend. I've gone against the Vikings a lot, but it seems anytime I go against the Packers when they're not at home, they always end up winning. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place right now because I don't know if I think I may have only picked the Vikings once this year and they're undefeated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of lost, but I'm going to go and just go with my gut and say that the Vikings pull this off in a close one. I'm going to say it is, I don't remember what you said, but I think 21-17.
So I think you said 17-13.
17-13.
Okay.
And Eric took the Vikings as well. So the three of you have taken the Vikings. Man, he got me back. Okay. After week 2 or whatever, I was like, I was wrong. But he came back in week 3. I don't think you know this. When Malik Willis was drafted, I said Malik Willis would be a great quarterback in this league.
Yeah. I think we were talking about that a little bit pre-show.
Yeah, maybe we did. I can't remember. Sometimes we have a lot of conversations. So, but what I do know is that they're at home. Malik Willis has been good.
Mhm.
Sam Darnold, we've seen a lot of Sam Darnold.
Mhm.
It's not been good. Like this year, it's been good, but like totality, we saw him in 3 different spots. Even last year with the 49ers, he wasn't excellent in spot duty for Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And so on the road, in a true test environment, division game, last time that we saw Sam Darnold in a division game of this magnitude, he was seeing ghosts and threw 5 picks. So give me now. Granted, Brian Flores is on the other side, who's making everybody see ghosts right now. So that's a little tough to think of. But one thing that they build in Green Bay is linemen. It's almost like they have a factory there, like Ford does. And they just create linemen out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're always going to have a good offensive line.
Yeah.
And they can run the ball well, no matter who's back there. On top of that, Josh Jacobs is really good at running the ball.
Yeah.
And Malik Willis, all you got to do is keep the ball in your hands, and your defense is going to take care of the rest. Keyshawn Nix is going to get a pick this week. Jair Alexander's going to have 3 pass breakups on Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's still going to get his 80, 100 yards, whatever he decides he wants to get this week.
Sure.
But I think it's going to be a 20-17 win for the Packers.
So 1 point less than mine.
And I also have a different team winning.
Yeah.
So yeah. But all right. So we got 2 games left. We got the Sunday night game and the Monday night game.
Mm-hmm.
First game, none of us have any skin in. Well, I guess I kind of do with the Bills.
Yep.
But Bills versus Ravens, classic AFC showdown against 2, one MVP winning quarterback, 1 future MVP quarterback.
Yeah.
You would have to assume Josh gets 1 at some point, peels it off. So Eric took the Bills. And I'll make this quick for myself. Bills win.
Yeah.
I think Lamar is still good, but they struggle at home, like I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take Bills 24-23.
Go for it.
All right. I'm going to also keep this pretty quick. I think that this is just going to come down to coaching, and I think that John Harbaugh is going to lose that coaching battle. I think it's going to be 31-27 Bills.
That's wild to say that John Harbaugh is going to lose a coaching battle.
Okay, but did you watch the second half of that game last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was completely outcoached.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about the Chiefs and his clock management.
Yeah, it's like I think that in general, John Harbaugh is a very good coach. I think that right now he's in a rut.
They live and die by analytics in Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
and right now they're dying a lot because their quarterback isn't. They think he's better at in the analytical model than he actually is. Because the numbers determine that he's a win above replacement X, and he's win above replacement X minus 2. So you.
Obviously, I know I talked about myself and my out of bounds take of being wrong about the Bills.
He's gonna do it again.
And
step on the brake.
And saying I was like, yeah, I was wrong, but I also think the Ravens made the necessary adjustments, and if assuming they can do that, I think they can win if they play Derrick Henry correctly. But I don't know if I'm confident enough in them to do so. But there's just still something eating at me at the Bills for whatever reason, and I can't put a finger on it. But give me the Ravens.
All right.
I'm gonna go 24-21 for that.
24-21. All right. And so that leads us to our Monday night game. It's the second of the 2 games, or is it the first of the 2 games?
I believe it's the second. They kick off within half an hour of each other. It's the one that people actually care about.
Yeah, the other one of them is Miami and Tennessee.
Yeah.
That nobody cares about, that terrible quarterback battle that Tim Boyle might actually win. But the Lions and Seahawks play at Ford Field.
Yep.
The Lions are introducing their brand new all blacks with the blue helmet.
They're so crisp.
They're so crisp. This is your team, so I'll let you have the first pick here.
All right, so under Dan Campbell, the Detroit Lions have been a very, very good team in primetime. They have had a ton of success in primetime. You look back to last season, we played, obviously, Chiefs in opening night.
Yep.
In primetime. I believe we played against the Raiders in primetime.
You also played against Dallas in primetime.
We also played against Dallas in primetime, a game that
should have won.
Dude, that one you really have to say was just a miscommunication from the refs.
I feel a butt coming.
Yeah. They are absolutely phenomenal. However,
Where are they not good at, John?
they are not good against the Seattle Seahawks. They have played the Seahawks 3 times under Dan Campbell. We have given up an average of over, I don't remember the exact numbers,
It was
over 40 points per game
Like
against
45,
the Seahawks.
yeah.
The Seahawks have the Lions number. That said, 34-14 Lions.
Wow. Okay, hold on.
Go
He's-
Cats.
He clearly watches the show. He did my
You
thing.
did do your thing.
He did 100% my thing.
We love a good misdirection.
That's all
Especially when you know it's not coming.
That's true. All right, what do you got here? Eric had the Seahawks, by the way. We'll give you that one.
Wow,
real
that's a
quick.
shocker.
Right.
I just got 2 words. 2 simple words.
Go Birds.
Go Cats.
Oh, okay. So I was going to do that whole
I'm going to go
misdirection.
30-17.
30-17? Okay. I was going to do that whole misdirection thing that you did and go, I'm going to take the Lions because, of all of these stats, 51-29, what was it, 44-41 or whatever it was, the one that you guys went back and forth on a couple years ago, and then last year's game was a weird one too.
It was like 37-31. It was an overtime game. They scored on touchdown.
Yeah, and so you guys have been able to hang in there. History-wise, the Seahawks are 12-5 all time against you guys, so that's not even just a Dan Campbell thing. But yeah, the other parts of that whole scenario, there's a major part missing. That's Pete Carroll.
Yes.
Right? And so Pete Carroll being there for the last 3 years with Dan Campbell, it's a different game now, Mike McDonald versus Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
So that being said, give me the Seahawks 27-20. I misdirect your misdirect, and that is what our picks are this week, guys. So you're going to have to let us know, are we geniuses or are we just crazy? Make sure to like, review, rate, subscribe, and share. And then also don't forget that we are doing that giveaway, and you have to type in Go Birds in either the Facebook post or our YouTube channel and subscribe. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.
220.
Also not 220.
Well, yeah, it'd be like
215, 213, something like that.